The deafening roar of orbital bombardment drowns out all other sounds as human soldier Walter Baker watches the Kytion city crumble before his eyes. Devastation rains from the sky, turning majestic structures into rubble in seconds. Walter's covert insertion team scatters, each member focused on their vital intelligence-gathering mission. He moves swiftly through the chaos, advanced combat suit allowing him to navigate the treacherous terrain with ease. Fallen buildings and spreading fires create a maze of destruction. Walter's enhanced senses scan for signs of Kytion military assets, but something else catches his attention. A faint life sign beneath a collapsed structure. Against orders, Walter approaches the source. He finds a Kytion female, her feline features contorted in pain, trapped under a massive slab of alien alloy. Her intricate firm markings suggest importance, perhaps nobility or political significance. Walter hesitates for a split second before making a choice that could alter the course of the war. He activates his suit's hydraulic assist and heaves the debris aside. The Tsytian's eyes flutter open, locking onto Walter's human face with a mix of fear and confusion. He kneels beside her, assessing her injuries with his medical scanner. The readout is grim. Without immediate intervention, she won't survive. Walter's fingers fly over his advanced medical kit, prepping nanobots and regenerative compounds. He administers the life-saving cocktail, watching as the bleeding slows and her vitals begin to stabilize. But it's not enough. She needs more extensive care. A difficult decision looms. Complete the mission or save this Tsytian's life. Walter's calm unit crackles to life, his commanding officer demanding a status update. In that moment, he makes his choice. Requesting immediate extraction, Walter transmits, his voice steady. Have secured high-value Kytion asset. Current position compromised. He scoops up the unconscious Kytion, her slight frame fitting easily in his augmented arms. The sound of approaching search parties spurs him into action. Walter activates his tactical cloak, the advanced human technology rendering them nearly invisible. Their journey through the war-torn city is fraught with danger. Walter dodges falling debris, sidesteps pockets of lethal radiation, and uses every ounce of his training to evade Kytion patrols. The unconscious female in his arms grows paler, her breathing shallow. As they near the extraction point, disaster strikes. Walter's cloak fails, leaving them exposed in hostile territory. A Kytion scout spots them, eyes widening in recognition. Walter gently lowers his charge and prepares for combat. The scout charges, all claws and fury. Walter's superior strength and reflexes allow him to dodge the initial assault. He counters with a precise strike, aiming to incapacitate rather than kill. The Kytion crumples, unconscious but alive. The delay is costly. More patrols converge on their position, and the extraction window shrinks with each passing second. Walter hefts the Kytion female onto his shoulders once more, pushing his enhanced physiology to its limits. He runs, each step a defiance of the war raging around them. The extraction point looms ahead, a beacon of hope in the chaos. Walter's muscles burn, his lungs heave, but he doesn't slow. The fate of his Kytion, and perhaps the war itself, rests on his shoulders. As plasma bolts sizzle past, Walter makes a final sprint. The extraction ship descends, hatch opening to reveal his fellow soldiers. With one last surge of strength, he leaps aboard, cradling the Kytion protectively. The hatch slams shut as the ship rockets skyward. Walter collapses to his knees, still holding the alien female. His mission abandoned, his future uncertain, but one thing is clear. He's just changed the course of this interstellar conflict in ways no one could have predicted. The extraction ship's engines roared as it ascended through Kytion airspace. Walter's eyes never left the alien female in his arms, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. The ship's medical bay doors hissed open, revealing a sterile environment filled with advanced human medical technology. "Get her on the biobed," ordered Captain Sarah Clark, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Walter gently laid the Kytion down, stepping back to allow the medical team access. As the ship dodged bursts of anti-aircraft fire, Walter activated his suit's holographic display, reviewing the data from his earlier medical scan. His eyes widened as he processed the information. "Captain," he called out, "I think we've got more than just a high-value asset. Those markings, they're royal." Sarah's head snapped towards him, her expression a mix of disbelief and concern. "Are you saying—" Walter nodded grimly. "We may have just rescued the Kytion princess." The implications of this revelation rippled through the ship's crew. Walter watched as the medical team worked furiously, administering more advanced versions of the nanobots he had used on the planet's surface. As they neared the HSS horizon, Walter's comm unit crackled to life. Admiral Marcus Hawthorne's voice filled the cabin, tense and urgent. "Soldier, report. What's the status of your guest?" Walter straightened instinctively, despite the Admiral's inability to see him. "Sir, the Kytion female is in critical but stable condition. And, sir, we have reason to believe she's Princess Zara, heir to the Kytion throne." A heavy silence followed, broken only by the beeping of medical equipment. Finally, Hawthorne spoke again, his voice laden with the weight of command. "Understood. Upon arrival, you and the princess will be placed in immediate quarantine. Prepare for decontamination procedures." The extraction ship docked smoothly with the horizon. As the airlock cycled, a team in hazmat suits rushed in, surrounding Walter and the unconscious princess. They were quickly ushered into a sealed medical bay, where Dr. Elena Rodriguez awaited them. "Let's see what we're dealing with," Elena murmured, her eyes scanning the holographic readouts above the biobed. Her fingers danced across the controls, adjusting treatment protocols. "Fascinating. Her cellular structure is remarkably resilient. The nanobots are integrating seamlessly." Walter stood at attention nearby, unable to tear his gaze from the alien princess. Her feline features, so foreign yet undeniably beautiful, stirred something within him. He pushed the feeling aside, focusing on his duty. "Doctor," he said, "what's her prognosis?" Elena's lips curved into a small smile. "Better than I expected. Your field treatment likely saved her life. She'll need time to heal, but I believe she'll make a full recovery." Relief washed over Walter, surprising him with its intensity. He nodded, maintaining his professional demeanor. "Thank you, Doctor. I'll report to the Admiral." As Walter turned to leave, Elena called out, "Wait. The Admiral wants you to remain here. You're to act as the princess's guardian and liaison once she regains consciousness." Walter's eyebrows rose, but he quickly schooled his features. "Understood." Over the next few days, Walter divided his time between standing guard over the princess and assisting Dr. Rodriguez in her research. He found himself fascinated by the intricacies of Kytion biology, absorbing every detail Elena shared. On the fourth day, as Walter was reviewing Kytion language files, a soft groan emanated from the biobed. He spun around to see Princess Zara's eyes fluttering open, their emerald green depths clouded with confusion. Walter approached slowly, his hands raised in a non-threatening gesture. "Gerkamrau," he attempted, using the Kytion word for peace. Zara's eyes widened, fear and hostility flashing across her features. She tried to sit up, hissing in pain. Walter instinctively moved to steady her, but stopped short as she bared her teeth. "Krisishinail," she growled, her meaning clear even to Walter's untrained ear. "Where am I?" Walter took a deep breath, calling upon his limited Kytion vocabulary. "Murska." "Ship," he said, pointing around them. "Human. Help." Zara's eyes darted around the room, taking in the unfamiliar technology. Her posture remained tense, but the immediate aggression faded from her expression. Walter activated his comm unit. "Dr. Rodriguez, she's awake." As Elena rushed in to examine the princess, Walter stepped back, giving them space. He watched as Zara's initial fear gave way to cautious curiosity, her gaze lingering on the advanced medical equipment. Over the following days, Walter spent hours with Zara, slowly bridging the language gap between them. He taught her basic English phrases, while she corrected his Kaition pronunciation. Despite the circumstances, Walter found himself drawn to her quick wit and regal bearing. One evening, as they sat reviewing star charts of the local systems, Zara suddenly placed her hand on Walter's arm. The touch sent an electric thrill through him. "Walter," she said, her accent lilting but her English much improved, "why did you save me?" He met her gaze, struck by the intensity in her eyes. "It was the right thing to do," he answered simply. Zara tilted her head, a very human gesture she had picked up. "Even though we are at war?" Walter considered his words carefully. Maybe saving you could be the first step towards ending that war." A small smile played at the corners of Zara's mouth, igniting a warmth in Walter's chest. But before either could speak again, alarms blared throughout the ship. Admiral Hawthorne's voice rang out over the intercom. "All hands to battle stations. Kaition fleet detected at system's edge. They're demanding the return of Princess Zara." Walter and Zara exchanged a look of shared apprehension. The fragile peace they had built in this small room was about to be tested against the realities of interstellar conflict. Walter's heart raced as he turned to Zara, her emerald eyes wide with concern. "We need to get you to a secure location," he said, reaching for her arm. Zara shook her head, her regal bearing asserting itself. "No, Walter. This is our chance to end this war. Take me to Admiral Hawthorne." Walter hesitated, torn between his duty to protect her and the potential for peace. Zara's determined gaze made the decision for him. He nodded, leading her swiftly through the corridors of the HSS Horizon. They arrived at the bridge as Admiral Hawthorne was issuing orders to the fleet. The Admiral's eyes widened at the sight of the Kaition princess. "Your Highness," he began, "we're preparing to defend." Zara stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "Admiral, I request that you initiate emergency peace talks. I will act as mediator between our species." A hush fell over the bridge. Hawthorne studied Zara for a long moment before turning to Walter. "Soldier, your assessment?" Walter straightened. "Sir, Princess Zara has shown a genuine desire for peace. This could be our best chance to end the conflict." Hawthorne nodded slowly. "Very well. Princess, we'll need to move quickly. The Kaition fleet is closing fast." Over the next hour, the HSS Horizon became a flurry of activity. Walter stood by Zara's side as she drafted a message to the approaching Kaition forces, her words carefully chosen to convey both strength and a willingness to negotiate. As they waited for a response, Walter noticed Zara's hands trembling slightly. He leaned in, speaking softly. "Are you all right?" Zara met his gaze, vulnerability flashing in her eyes. "I never expected to be in this position. The fate of two species. It's overwhelming." Walter resisted the urge to take her hand. Instead, he offered a reassuring smile. "You're not alone in this. We'll face it together." A warmth spread through Zara's expression, but before she could respond, Admiral Hawthorne approached. "We've received a reply. They've agreed to talks, but their delegation will be led by Grand Admiral Xindar." Zara's fur bristled at the name. Xindar is a hardliner, known for his hatred of humans. "This won't be easy." Walter's mind raced, recalling his training in Kytion culture. We'll need to be prepared for aggressive posturing. Xindar will likely demand your immediate return. Zara nodded, her expression hardening with determination. Then we'll need to show him that I'm here of my own free will. Walter, I want you by my side during the negotiations. You'll act as my personal guard and translator. Admiral Hawthorne raised an eyebrow but didn't object. Agreed. We'll convene in the main conference room in 1 hour. As the Kytion shuttle docked with the horizon, Walter stood at attention beside Zara. He could feel the tension radiating from her, her tail twitching slightly with nervous energy. The airlock hissed open, revealing Grand Admiral Xindar. The Tsychian's massive frame filled the doorway, his scarred face a mask of barely held back fury. His eyes locked onto Zara, then narrowed as they shifted to Walter. Princess, Xindar growled in Kytion. Step away from that human filth. We're leaving immediately. Walter tensed, ready to intervene, but Zara's voice rang out, clear and commanding. Grand Admiral, I will do no such thing. I am here as a free agent, to negotiate peace between our people. Xindar's fur bristled, but Zara pressed on, switching to English for the benefit of the human delegation. I propose we conduct these talks on neutral ground. The conference room has been prepared for us. For a moment, Walter thought Xindar might refuse. But slowly, the Kytion admiral inclined his head in a grudging nod. As they made their way to the conference room, Walter noticed Dr. Elena Rodriguez joining the human delegation. Her eyes darted between him and Zara, a curious expression on her face. The negotiations began tensely, with Xindar demanding Zara's immediate return and threatening renewed hostilities. Walter, drawing on his combat experience, remained vigilant for any signs of aggression. Suddenly, Zara rose to her feet, her voice cutting through the heated arguments. Enough! There's something you all must know. She took a deep breath, her gaze sweeping the room. This war was instigated by a radical faction within the Kytion government. They have been feeding false information to both sides. The room erupted into chaos. Accusations flew back and forth, with Xindar roaring denials. Walter moved closer to Zara, ready to protect her if needed. As the shouting reached a fever pitch, Walter's training kicked in. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the din. Everyone, please. We need to approach this calmly. Princess Zara has risked everything to bring us this information. The least we can do is listen. To Walter's surprise, his words seemed to have an effect. The room gradually quieted, all eyes turning to Zara. She began to explain in detail, revealing the extent of the deception that had led to the war. As the talk stretched on, Walter found himself increasingly aware of Zara's proximity. Their eyes met during tense moments, a shared understanding passing between them. He noticed Dr. Rodriguez watching them intently, her brow furrowed in concentration. The negotiations were entering their third hour when Walter's enhanced senses picked up a subtle movement. His eyes locked onto a member of the Kytion delegation, reaching inside his robes. Time seemed to slow. Walter saw the glint of a weapon, aimed directly at Zara. Without hesitation, he launched into action. "Down!" he shouted, tackling Zara to the ground as a plasma bolt sizzled overhead. Chaos erupted once more, but Walter's focus remained on the princess beneath him. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice rough with adrenaline. Zara nodded, her eyes wide. "You saved me." Again. For a moment, the world faded away. Walter became acutely aware of Zara's warmth, the softness of her fur against his skin. The intensity of her gaze sent a jolt through him. The spell was broken as security forces swarmed the room, subduing the would-be assassin. As Walter helped Zara to her feet, he noticed Grand Admiral Xindar staring at them, his expression unreadable. Admiral Hawthorne's voice cut through the commotion. This attack only proves the truth of Princess Zara's words. We need to take action against this radical faction immediately. To everyone's surprise, Xindar nodded slowly. Perhaps there is more to the situation than I first believed. His eyes lingered on Walter and Zara. What do you propose, human? Hawthorne straightened, his voice filled with authority. A joint human Sci-Chin task force. We'll work together to root out this radical faction and put an end to this war once and for all. As discussions of the joint mission began, Walter felt a light touch on his arm. He turned to find Zara looking up at him, a mix of gratitude and something deeper in her eyes. It seems we'll be working closely together, she said softly. Walter nodded, a warmth spreading through his chest. I look forward to it, Your Highness. As they shared a smile, neither noticed Dr. Rodriguez watching them intently, a datapad in her hand and a gleam of scientific curiosity in her eyes. Walter caught her gaze, sensing the unspoken questions behind her analytical expression. The tense atmosphere on the bridge dissipated as Admiral Hawthorne announced the formation of the Joint Human Sci-Chin Task Force. Walter's heart raced with a mix of anticipation and apprehension as he was assigned to lead the human contingent alongside Commander Mirazen, a seasoned Kaidian officer. Days passed in a flurry of preparation. Walter immersed himself in mission briefings and strategy sessions, stealing glances at Zara whenever their paths crossed. The weight of their shared moments hung between them, unspoken yet palpable. Finally, the day of departure arrived. Walter stood in the shuttle bay, adjusting his tactical gear as the stealth shuttle hummed to life. Commander Mirazen approached, her feline features set in a mask of dedication. "Are you ready, human?" she asked, her voice a low growl. Walter nodded, meeting her gaze. "Let's end this war." As the shuttle lifted off, Walter cast one last look at the horizon. He caught a glimpse of Zara watching from an observation deck, her emerald eyes locked on him. A surge of emotion threatened to overwhelm him, but he pushed it aside, focusing on the mission ahead. The journey to Keisha's largest moon was tense and quiet. As they approached their target, the shuttle sensors picked up an unusual energy signature emanating from the suspected base. "That's no ordinary power source," Mirazen muttered, her ears flicking forward in interest. Walter leaned in to study the readouts. "Agreed. We'll need to proceed with caution." The shuttle touched down silently on the moon's barren surface. Walter led the infiltration team towards a hidden entrance, his enhanced senses on high alert. They breached the outer defenses with practiced efficiency, descending into the vast underground complex. The team moved through dimly lit corridors, passing rows of advanced weaponry that made Walter's blood run cold. Some of the technology appeared alien, neither human nor Kaitian in origin. "Look at this," Mirazen called out, gesturing to a strange, pulsing device. "I've never seen anything like it." Walter approached, his brow furrowed. "Neither have I. We need to document everything and transmit it back to the horizon." As they delved deeper into the facility, Walter's unease grew. The evidence they uncovered painted a disturbing picture. A third party had been manipulating both sides of the conflict, prolonging the war for their own gain. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the complex. Automated defenses sprang to life, filling the air with plasma bolts and energy beams. "Take cover," Walter shouted, diving behind a console. Mirazen rolled to his side, her claws extended. "We've triggered some kind of security system." Walter's mind raced, assessing their options. He caught Mirazen's eye and saw his own commitment reflected there. Together, they formulated a plan, combining Walter's combat expertise with Mirazen's knowledge of Kaitian technology. Moving in perfect sync, they disabled the security systems one by one, clearing a path to the central control room. The rest of the team followed in their wake, securing their position. In the control room, Walter's fingers flew over the alien console, decrypting files and uncovering the truth. His eyes widened as he read the name, Galactic Dynamics. "It's a corporation," he breathed. "They've been profiting from the war, selling weapons to both sides." Mirazen snarled, her tail lashing in anger. "Traitors to both our peoples." Walter quickly transmitted the data back to the horizon. As the last file uploaded, a new alarm sounded, more urgent than before. "Self-destruct sequence activated," an automated voice announced. "Total base destruction in 5 minutes." "We need to move now," Walter shouted, already racing for the exit. The team sprinted through the collapsing facility, dodging falling debris and fighting against tremors that threatened to throw them off balance. Walter and Mirazen worked in tandem, ensuring no one was left behind. They burst out of the hidden entrance just as the first explosions rocked the underground complex. The shuttle lifted off moments later, narrowly escaping the fiery destruction of the base. As they approached the horizon, Walter allowed himself a moment of relief. They had accomplished their mission and uncovered a truth that could change the course of the war. The shuttle docked, and Walter stepped out, his body aching from the intense mission. He scanned the crowded bay, his heart skipping a beat as he spotted Zara pushing through the crowd. Before he could react, Zara threw herself into his arms, embracing him tightly. Walter froze for a moment, acutely aware of the eyes upon them, before slowly returning the embrace. "You're safe," Zara whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Walter pulled back slightly, meeting her gaze. The intensity he saw there made his breath catch. Around them, a hushed murmur spread through the assembled crew, human and Kytian alike. Admiral Hawthorne cleared his throat, breaking the moment. "Soldier, princess, perhaps we should debrief in private." As they followed the admiral, Walter caught sight of Dr. Rodriguez watching them intently, a datapad clutched in her hands. The expression on her face spoke of scientific fascination and something more, a realization that sent a shiver down Walter's spine. He knew that whatever came next would change everything, for him, for Zara, and for the future of human-Cytian relations. The war might be approaching its end, but Walter sensed that his greatest challenges still lay ahead. The revelation of galactic dynamics involvement had changed everything, and Walter knew their next move would be crucial. Admiral Hawthorne's voice cut through the tension in the briefing room. "We have the location of Galactic Dynamics headquarters. It's time to end this once and for all." Walter straightened, his eyes meeting Zara's across the room. She nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the challenges that lay before them. "The station orbits a gas giant in neutral space," Hawthorne continued, bringing up a holographic display. "Our joint task force will launch a coordinated assault. Baker, you'll lead the human contingent. Commander Mirazen will direct the Kytian forces." Walter studied the rotating image of the massive space station, his mind already formulating strategies. "What about their defenses, sir?" "That's where it gets interesting," Hawthorne replied. "We'll initiate with an electromagnetic pulse to disable their outer defenses. It should give us the window we need to breach the hull." As the briefing continued, Walter felt a familiar surge of adrenaline. This was what he was trained for, but the stakes had never been higher. Hours later, Walter stood in the launch bay, surrounded by a mix of human and Kytian soldiers. The atmosphere was charged with nervous energy as final preparations were made. Commander Mirazen approached, her feline features set in a determined expression. "Are you ready, Baker?" Walter nodded, checking his weapon one last time. "Let's finish this." The assault shuttles launched in perfect formation, streaking through space towards a looming station. Walter's grip tightened on his harness as they entered range. EMP in 3, 2, 1. The pilot's voice crackled over the comm. A brilliant flash of light engulfed the station. For a moment, everything went dark. Then, as systems rebooted, Walter saw their opening. "All units move in," he commanded. The shuttles surged forward, breaching the hull at strategic points. Walter's team was the first to exit, securing their entry point with practiced efficiency. As they pushed deeper into the station, they encountered heavy resistance. Galactic Dynamic Security Forces were well-equipped and clearly prepared for a fight. Walter ducked behind a bulkhead as plasma bolts sizzled past. He signaled to a Kytion soldier, who responded with a quick nod. Their coordinated attack took down 3 guards in rapid succession. "Baker, this is Horizon." Zara's voice came through his comm. "We're detecting a concentration of forces 2 levels up. Possible ambush point." "Copy that, Princess," Walter replied, grateful for her insight. "Mirazen, did you get that?" "Affirmative," the Kytion commander growled. Deploying units to flank. They fought their way through the station's maze-like corridors, human and Kytion soldiers working in seamless cooperation. Walter's combat experience proved invaluable as he guided them past traps and choke points. Suddenly, Walter's enhanced senses picked up an anomaly. He held up a fist, bringing the team to a halt. "Wait," he whispered, focusing on a barely perceptible hum. Carefully, he approached a nondescript wall panel. His fingers found a hidden seam, and with a soft click, a secret door slid open. "Jackpot," Walter breathed, taking in the room filled with servers and data terminals. "Horizon, we've found their data center. Transmitting coordinates now." As his team secured the vital information, Walter's mind raced. The evidence they were uncovering would be crucial in ending the conflict and bringing galactic dynamics to justice. "Baker, this is Hawthorne. Intel suggests the CEO, Victor Drecht, is personally leading the defense near the central control room. Proceed with caution." Walter acknowledged the warning, steeling himself for what lay ahead. As they approached the control room, the resistance intensified. Plasma bolts and energy beams crisscrossed the corridor, filling the air with ozone and the cries of the wounded. "Mirazen, we need to outflank them," Walter called out, spotting a weakness in the enemy's formation. The Kytion commander bared her fangs in a fierce grin. "Leave it to me, human." What followed was a masterclass in interspecies cooperation. Walter's tactical insight, combined with Mirazen's lightning-fast reflexes as they maneuvered through the chaos. Human and Kytion soldiers followed their lead, pressing the advantage. As they breached the final defenses, Walter caught sight of a figure retreating into the control room. "That's Drecht. We can't let him activate any failsafes." Racing against time, Walter and Mirazen burst into the control room. Victor Drecht stood at the main console, his fingers flying over the controls. "Step away from the console," Walter shouted, his weapon trained on the CEO. Drecht's eyes darted between them, a mixture of fear and defiance on his face. "You're too late," he snarled. "This station will be nothing but debris in minutes." Walter's blood ran cold as he recognized the familiar countdown on the screen. "Self-destruct sequence," he muttered. "Mirazen, secure Drecht. I'll handle this." As the Kytion commander subdued the CEO, Walter approached the console. His mind flashed back to the moon base, remembering the tense moments as he raced to prevent its destruction. "Horizon, I need assistance," he called out, his fingers already working to bypass security protocols. "The station's set to self-destruct. I need to know how to disable it." "We're on it, Walter." Zara's voice came through, tight with concern. Dr. Rodriguez is analyzing the station schematics now. Seconds ticked by as Walter fought against the system's safeguards. Sweat beaded on his forehead as the countdown continued its relentless march. Walter, listen carefully, Dr. Rodriguez's voice cut in. You need to simultaneously override 3 separate systems. I'll guide you through it step by step. Following her instructions, Walter's hands flew across the controls. Each successful override brought a surge of hope, but the final seconds were upon them. With a final, desperate command, Walter hit the execute key. The room fell silent, the ominous countdown frozen at 2 seconds remaining. For a moment, no one dared to breathe. Then, slowly, the self-destruct warning faded from the screens. "Horizon, this is Baker," Walter said, his voice hoarse with relief. "Self-destruct averted. The station is secure." Cheers erupted over the comm channel, the sound of celebration filling the control room. Walter sagged against the console, the adrenaline rush fading into bone-deep exhaustion. As Mirazen secured Victor Drecht with a joint human-Cytian security detail, Walter realized the magnitude of what they had accomplished. They had not only captured the mastermind behind the prolonged conflict, but had also secured the evidence needed to bring galactic dynamics to justice. The successful operation marked a turning point in the war, uniting humans and Caitians against a common enemy. As Walter prepared to return to the horizon, he knew that the real work of building lasting peace was just beginning. His thoughts turned to Zara and the unspoken connection that had grown between them throughout this ordeal. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Walter was certain of one thing. Their shared experiences had forged a bond that transcended species, one that would shape the future of human-Cytian relations in ways he could only begin to imagine. As the Horizon docked at the Central Space Station where the peace talks were to be held, Walter found himself thrust into a new role he had never anticipated. Baker a word. Admiral Hawthorne called out as Walter made his way through the bustling hangar bay. Walter approached, standing at attention. "Sir, you've been reassigned," Hawthorne said, his expression unreadable. "Princess Zara has personally requested you as her security detail and cultural liaison during the negotiations." Walter blinked, caught off guard. "Me, sir? Wouldn't a diplomat be better suited?" Hawthorne shook his head. "You've worked closely with the Caitians, especially the princess. Your combat experience and growing understanding of their culture make you uniquely qualified. Don't let us down, soldier." As Walter absorbed this new development, he caught sight of Zara across the hangar. She was speaking with a group of Kytion officials, her posture regal yet approachable. When she noticed him, she offered a small smile that sent an unexpected warmth through his chest. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Walter found himself in briefings on diplomatic protocol, studying the intricacies of both human and Kytion etiquette. He worked closely with Zara, helping her understand human customs, while she taught him the finer points of Kytion's social hierarchy. When the day of the negotiations finally arrived, Walter stood vigilantly behind Zara's chair in the specially designed conference room. The circular chamber was divided into 3 sections, one for humans, one for Caitians, and a neutral zone in the center where representatives from both sides could interact more freely. The talks began with tense formality. Centuries of mistrust and cultural differences created a palpable undercurrent of tension. Walter observed the proceedings silently, noting the subtle body language and unspoken cues from both sides. During a particularly heated exchange about resource allocation in disputed territories, Walter leaned in close to Zara. "Your Highness," he whispered, "the human delegation seems to be misinterpreting the Kytion stance on mineral rights. Perhaps a clarification on the spiritual significance of certain elements in Kytion culture would help." Zara nodded almost imperceptibly, then gracefully interjected with a suggested explanation. The human delegates paused, considering this new information, and the conversation took a more productive turn. As the day wore on, Walter's insights proved invaluable, helping to bridge gaps in understanding between the two species. Zara, in turn, demonstrated a remarkable ability to adapt human negotiation tactics to appeal to her own people. Just as it seemed progress was being made, a shrill alarm shattered the diplomatic atmosphere. Red emergency lights bathed the room in an eerie glow as Admiral Hawthorne received an urgent communication. "We have a situation," Hawthorne announced, his voice grave. "A rogue galactic dynamics warship has breached our security perimeter. It's on a collision course with the horizon." Chaos erupted in the conference room. Delegates from both sides began shouting, accusations of betrayal flying. Walter instantly moved to Zara's side, scanning for potential threats. "Baker," Hawthorne called out over the din, "our sensors are detecting an unusual energy signature on the enemy vessel. We believe it's some kind of explosive device." Walter's mind raced, assessing the situation. "Sir, we need to board that ship and neutralize the threat before it reaches the horizon." As Walter quickly outlined a plan, Zara stepped forward. "I have an idea," she said, her eyes bright with tenacity. "The energy signature you detected, it might be similar to an experimental Kytion weapon. If so, I can help identify and disarm it." Protests erupted from both human and Kytion officials, but Zara stood firm. "This is bigger than our individual species now," she insisted. "We must work together." Reluctantly, Admiral Hawthorne and Grand Admiral Xindar agreed, recognizing the potential diplomatic benefits of human-Cytian cooperation in this crisis. Within minutes, Walter found himself leading a mixed team of human and Kytion special forces, with Zara by his side. They gathered in the Horizon's airlock, preparing for a daring space walk to board the enemy vessel. "Remember your training," Walter said, his voice calm despite the gravity of the situation. "Stay in formation and watch each other's backs." As the airlock opened, revealing the vast expanse of space before them, Walter felt a hand on his arm. He turned to see Zara, her eyes meeting his through their helmet visors. "Together?" she asked, a hint of nervousness in her voice. Walter nodded, feeling a surge of protectiveness. "Together." With that, they launched themselves into the void, magnetic boots and personal shield generators their only protection as they traversed the treacherous space between ships. Debris from the initial breach floated around them, and occasional bursts of enemy fire illuminated the darkness. Walter led the team in a zigzag pattern, minimizing their exposure to enemy fire. He marveled at how smoothly the humans and Caitians worked together, covering each other's movements with practiced efficiency. As they neared the galactic dynamics ship, Walter spotted a breach in the hull, their entry point. "On my mark," he commanded, readying himself for the next phase of their dangerous mission. With a deep breath, Walter gave the signal. The team surged forward, entering the enemy vessel and immediately engaging the galactic dynamics crew in close-quarters combat. The narrow corridors echoed with the sound of plasma fire and hand-to-hand struggles. Walter and Zara moved in perfect sync, their contrasting strengths complementing each other. His powerful human physique provided the force needed to subdue larger opponents, while her Kytion agility allowed her to outmaneuver and flank their enemies. As they fought their way towards the bridge, Walter couldn't help but admire Zara's newfound combat skills. The boxing techniques he had taught her melded seamlessly with her natural Kytion grace, creating a fighting style uniquely her own. Suddenly, Zara's ears twitched, picking up a sound too faint for human hearing. "Walter," she hissed, "there's something ahead, a low-frequency hum." Walter nodded, trusting her enhanced senses. They rounded a corner and found themselves facing a heavily fortified door. "This must be it," he said, studying the locking mechanism. "Cover me while I try to bypass the security." As Walter worked on the door, Zara kept watch, her reflexes lightning fast as she deflected incoming fire. With a satisfying click, the door slid open, revealing the ship's bridge and the true nature of the threat they faced. In the center of the room stood a device unlike anything Walter had ever seen. It pulsed with an otherworldly energy, distorting the very space around it. "By the goddess," Zara breathed, her eyes wide. "It's a singularity generator. If it detonates, it could take out not just the horizon, but the entire station," Walter finished, the gravity of the situation hitting him. Before they could move towards the device, a figure stepped out from behind a console, weapon raised. "That's far enough," the man snarled, his face twisted with fanatical commitment. "I am Captain Marcus Venn, and you will not interfere with galactic dynamics' final victory." Walter tensed, ready to spring into action, but Zara's hand on his arm held him back. She stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Captain Venn, surely you see the futility of this action. The war is over. Galactic dynamics has fallen. This device will only cause more senseless destruction." Venn's eyes darted between them, his grit visibly wavering. Walter seized a moment of distraction, lunging forward to disarm the captain. But Venn was quicker than expected, firing his weapon as Walter moved. Time seemed to slow as Walter saw the energy bolt, heading straight for Zara. Without hesitation, he threw himself in its path, feeling a searing pain as it grazed his side. He stumbled, momentarily stunned by the impact. In that instant, Zara moved with a speed and precision that left Walter in awe. She closed the distance to Venn, using a combination of Kytion martial arts and the human boxing techniques Walter had taught her. Her strikes were lightning fast, overwhelming the galactic dynamics captain before he could react. With Venn subdued, Walter and Zara turned their attention to the singularity device. Its pulsing had increased in frequency, a clear sign that time was running out. "We need to destabilize the energy matrix," Zara said, her hands hovering over the device's controls. But one wrong move could trigger a premature detonation. Walter nodded, pushing aside the pain from his injury. "I'll handle the power distribution. You focus on the containment field." Working in tandem, they began the delicate process of dismantling the weapon. Walter's technical expertise guided them through the device's human-designed components, while Zara's understanding of exotic energy fields proved crucial in neutralizing the Titan-inspired elements. As the final seconds ticked down, Walter and Zara's eyes met. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a connection deeper than either had anticipated. With a final, synchronized movement, they severed the device's power source. The singularity generator sputtered and died, its ominous hum fading to silence. For a heartbeat, neither moved, scarcely daring to believe they had succeeded. Then, as the reality of their victory sunk in, a wave of relief washed over them. Without thinking, Walter pulled Zara into a tight embrace. Despite the bulkiness of their space suits, he could feel the warmth of her body, the rapid beating of her heart matching his own. The physical contact sent a jolt through him, awakening feelings he had long suppressed. Zara returned the embrace with equal fervor, her body molding against his in a way that felt both alien and utterly right. As they clung to each other, the boundaries between human and Kytion seemed to blur, leaving only the connection between two individuals who had faced death together and emerged victorious. The moment was broken by the crackle of their communicators. "Baker, Princess Zara, report status." Admiral Hawthorne's voice came through, tinged with concern. Walter reluctantly pulled away, his voice slightly hoarse as he responded. "Mission accomplished, so the threat has been neutralized. We're securing the enemy vessel now." As they began the process of detaining the remaining Galactic Dynamics crew and preparing the ship for towing, Walter couldn't help but steal glances at Zara. Something had changed between them, a shift as monumental as the peace they were working towards. Returning to the horizon as heroes, Walter and Zara found themselves at the center of attention. Their successful mission had not only saved countless lives, but had also provided a powerful symbol of human-Psychian cooperation. As they stepped off the shuttle, Admiral Hawthorne and Grand Admiral Xindar were waiting to greet them. The two leaders, who had been at odds for so long, now stood side by side, united in their gratitude. "Your actions today have done more for peace than months of negotiations," Hawthorne said, his usual gruff demeanor softened by genuine admiration. Xindar nodded in agreement, his tail swishing in what Walter had come to recognize as a sign of approval. "You have shown us what we can achieve when we set aside our differences and work together." As the adrenaline of the mission faded, Walter became acutely aware of the eyes upon them, human and Kaitian alike. He could sense the curiosity, the speculation about the nature of his relationship with Zara, the weight of their responsibilities, to their respective species and to the fragile peace they were building, settled heavily upon him. Dr. Rodriguez approached, her datapad clutched tightly in her hands. "Fascinating," she murmured, her eyes darting between Walter and Zara. "The level of synchronization you displayed during the crisis. It's unprecedented. I have a theory about potential physiological responses triggered by high-stress situations. With your permission, I'd like to conduct some controlled experiments to further study human-Psychian interactions." Walter opened his mouth to respond, but was cut off by Admiral Hawthorne. "That can wait, Doctor. Right now, we need to get back to the negotiating table. This incident has given us a unique opportunity to push for real progress." As they made their way back to the conference room, Walter found himself walking beside Zara. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension, the memory of their embrace still fresh in his mind. "Walter," Zara said softly, her voice pitched low enough that only he could hear. "What happened on that ship? We should discuss it." Walter nodded, acutely aware of the challenges that lay ahead. "We will," he promised. "But first, we have a peace to secure." As they entered the conference room, now buzzing with renewed energy and purpose, Walter steeled himself for the task ahead. The road to lasting peace between humans and Caitians would not be easy, but for the first time, it felt truly possible. And whatever complications his feelings for Zara might bring, he knew that together, they had the strength to face any challenge that lay ahead. As the negotiations resumed, Walter couldn't shake the lingering sensation of Zara's embrace. He forced himself to focus on the task at hand, but found his gaze repeatedly drawn to the Kaitian princess across the conference table. Her emerald eyes met his, a flicker of shared understanding passing between them. Admiral Hawthorne's voice cut through Walter's thoughts. "In light of recent events, we believe it's crucial to further study the dynamics of human-Psychian cooperation. Dr. Rodriguez, please present your proposal." The scientist stepped forward, her datapad clutched tightly. "Thank you, Admiral. I propose a series of controlled experiments to analyze human-Psychian interactions under various conditions. This data could prove invaluable in strengthening our alliance and understanding our physiological compatibility." Grand Admiral Xindar's tail swished thoughtfully. "And who do you suggest as subjects for these experiments, Doctor?" Dr. Rodriguez's eyes darted between Walter and Zara. "Given their recent success and demonstrated ability to work together, I believe Commander Baker and Princess Zara would be ideal candidates." A murmur rippled through the room. Walter felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension, noting a similar conflict in Zara's expression. Admiral Hawthorne nodded slowly. "Very well. Commander Baker, Princess Zara, are you willing to participate in these studies?" Walter straightened, his voice steady. "Yes, sir, if it will help secure peace between our species, I'm in." Zara's response came, without hesitation. I, too, will volunteer for this endeavor. Over the next few days, a specialized research facility was established aboard the HSS Horizon. Walter and Zara found themselves subjected to a battery of tests, ranging from simple problem-solving tasks to intense physical challenges. Throughout it all, Dr. Rodriguez and her team monitored their every reaction. During a particularly grueling simulation of a zero-gravity rescue operation, Walter felt his heart racing as he maneuvered through the mock debris field. Zara moved with feline grace beside him, her body heat palpable even through their suits. As they neared their objective, a sudden shift in the simulated gravity field sent them careening towards each other. Walter instinctively reached out, catching Zara and pulling her close to stabilize their position. The moment their bodies pressed together, something changed. A wave of heat washed over Walter, his senses overwhelmed by Zara's presence. He could feel her pulse quickening, matching his own rapid heartbeat. Their eyes locked, and Walter found himself lost in the depths of her gaze. Zara's hand tightened on his arm, her claws extending slightly to prick his skin through the suit. A low, rumbling emanated from her chest, sending vibrations through Walter's body. "Walter," she breathed, her voice husky and filled with an intensity he'd never heard before. Without conscious thought, Walter leaned in, drawn by an irresistible pull. Zara's lips parted, her whiskers quivering with anticipation. Just as their mouths were about to meet, the simulation abruptly ended. "That's enough." Dr. Rodriguez's voice cut through the haze of desire. "We've collected sufficient data for this session." Walter and Zara sprang apart, both breathing heavily. As they exited the simulation chamber, Walter caught sight of Dr. Rodriguez's expression, a mix of scientific excitement and concern. In the days that followed, the research team pored over the collected data. Walter and Zara were subjected to more tests, each one seeming to intensify the connection between them. Finally, Dr. Rodriguez called a meeting to present her findings. "The results are remarkable," she began, her eyes alight with discovery. "Prolonged close contact between humans and Caitians triggers hormonal changes that enhance physical compatibility between our species. The pheromones released during these interactions create a feedback loop, strengthening the attraction and potentially fostering deeper emotional bonds." The implications of her words hung heavy in the air. Admiral Hawthorne leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "And what are the potential consequences of these findings, Doctor?" Dr. Rodriguez took a deep breath. "They're far-reaching. Sir, this discovery could pave the way for stronger alliances between our species. However, it also raises questions about genetic diversity and the potential for interbreeding." A tense silence fell over the room. Walter glanced at Zara, seeing his own mix of hope and uncertainty reflected in her eyes. Grand Admiral Xindar broke the silence, his tail lashing with agitation. "This information must be handled carefully. There are those among both our peoples who would view this as a threat to our genetic purity." As if on cue, Walter's comm unit buzzed with an incoming transmission. A group of human and Kaitian scientists had caught wind of the research and were proposing a bold new initiative. A joint colony where volunteers from both species could live together, allowing for long-term study of human-Scythian cohabitation. Admiral Hawthorne's eyes narrowed as he read the proposal. "This is a politically charged situation. We need to tread carefully, but we can't ignore the potential benefits," Zara interjected, her voice firm. "This could be the key to lasting peace between our species." After hours of heated debate, a compromise was reached. A small-scale experimental colony would be established, with Walter and Zara appointed as its leaders. As they prepared for their new assignment, Walter pulled Zara aside. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, searching her face for any sign of doubt. Zara's hand found his, her fingers intertwining with his own. "I am," she said softly. Whatever challenges we face, we'll face them together. Their moment of connection was interrupted by a commotion in the corridor. Dr. Rodriguez burst into the room, her face pale. "We have a problem," she gasped. "A radical Kytion group has released a bioengineered virus on the horizon. It's targeting the pheromone receptors of both species. They're trying to eliminate the attraction between humans and Kytians." Walter's grip on Zara's hand tightened as the gravity of the situation sank in. They had overcome so much to reach this point of cooperation between their species. Now, with a deadly virus threatening to undo all their progress, they faced their greatest challenge yet. As alarms blared throughout the ship, Walter and Zara exchanged a determined look. They had come too far to let this sabotage destroy the future they were fighting for. With time running out and the virus spreading rapidly, they knew the real battle was just beginning. Walter and Zara knew they had to act fast. With the virus spreading rapidly through the horizon, they rushed to Dr. Rodriguez's lab, where she was already working feverishly on a potential treatment. "I've developed an experimental procedure," Dr. Rodriguez explained, her eyes darting between holographic displays of molecular structures. "It's risky, but it might be our only chance to counteract the virus." Walter stepped forward without hesitation. "I'll do it, whatever it takes." Zara's emerald eyes widened, her tail lashing with concern. "Walter, you can't. We don't know what this might do to you." He turned to her, his expression resolute. "We don't have a choice. If we don't stop this virus, everything we've worked for will be lost." Zara held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "Then I'm staying with you. Whatever happens, we face it together." Dr. Rodriguez began preparing the treatment, a complex series of injections and targeted electromagnetic pulses. As Walter lay on the medical bed, Zara positioned herself behind a containment field, her eyes never leaving him. The first injection sent a jolt through Walter's body. He gritted his teeth, fighting against the urge to cry out as waves of heat and cold washed over him. Sweat beaded on his forehead, his muscles spasming uncontrollably. "Walter," Zara called out, her voice thick with emotion. She pressed her hand against the containment field, as if trying to reach him through sheer force of will. As Dr. Rodriguez continued the procedure, Walter's condition seemed to stabilize. His breathing evened out and the violent tremors subsided. But then, something unexpected happened. Zara suddenly gasped, her fur standing on end. Even through the containment field, she could sense a change in Walter's biochemistry. His altered pheromones called to her on a primal level, igniting a fire in her blood that she could barely comprehend. "Fascinating," Dr. Rodriguez murmured, her eyes flicking between her instruments and Zara's reaction. "The interspecies attraction mechanism is far more powerful than we realized." As the treatment progressed, Walter's body began producing antibodies to combat the virus. Dr. Rodriguez worked quickly, synthesizing a prototype cure from his blood samples. Within hours, tests on infected volunteers showed promising results. But as the immediate medical crisis began to subside, a new challenge emerged. News of the virus and the experimental treatment spread like wildfire through both human and Kytion media channels. The horizon was soon flooded with incoming transmissions, opinions sharply divided on the implications of what had occurred. Admiral Hawthorne and Grand Admiral Xindar found themselves under intense pressure from their respective governments. Conservative factions demanded an immediate end to the joint colony project, citing fears of genetic contamination. In the midst of this political firestorm, Walter and Zara recovered in the medical bay, their bodies still adjusting to the aftermath of the treatment. They found themselves acutely aware of each other's presence, a new level of connection humming between them. "I can sense your emotions," Zara said softly, her whiskers twitching. It's like, I can feel what you're feeling. Walter nodded, equally amazed. I know. It's the same for me. Dr. Rodriguez thinks it might be a side effect of the treatment. Before they could explore this new facet of their relationship further, Admiral Hawthorne entered the medical bay, his expression grave. Commander Baker, Princess Zara, he began. We're facing a critical situation. The incident has polarized public opinion, and there's mounting pressure to abandon our cooperation efforts. Grand Admiral Xindar joined them, his tail swishing anxiously. However, we believe that now, more than ever, we must push forward with our plans for coexistence. The two leaders exchanged a look before Hawthorne continued. We've decided to accelerate the colony project. We're establishing an outpost on a nearby habitable moon, effective immediately, and we want you two to lead it. Walter and Zara stared at each other, the weight of this responsibility settling over them. They could sense each other's mixture of excitement and apprehension, their newfound connection allowing for a depth of understanding that words alone could never convey. We'll do it, Walter said, speaking for both of them. Zara nodded in agreement, her hand finding his. As preparations for the new colony, christened Harmony, began in earnest, Walter and Zara found themselves at the center of a scientific and political maelstrom. Dr. Rodriguez proposed a series of tests to explore the extent of their connection, her excitement scarcely controlled as she outlined the potential implications for human psyche and biology. Meanwhile, protests erupted across both human and Kytion worlds. Conservative groups decried the genetic experiment, while a growing movement of young supporters rallied behind the idea of increased interspecies cooperation. As Walter and Zara prepared to depart for Harmony, they stood on the observation deck of the horizon, watching as their new home grew larger in the view screen. The small, blue-green moon held the promise of a fresh start, but also the weight of two civilizations' hopes and fears. Are you ready for this? Walter asked, his voice low. Zara's tail curled around his leg, a gesture of comfort and solidarity. As long as we're together, I'm ready for anything. As they boarded the shuttle that would take them to their new home, neither Walter nor Zara could have anticipated the challenges that lay ahead. The success or failure of Harmony would rest on their shoulders, and every action they took would be scrutinized by billions across two worlds. The shuttle's engines ignited, propelling them towards an uncertain future. As they broke free from the horizon's artificial gravity, Walter and Zara found themselves floating together in the microgravity of the small craft. Their eyes met, and in that moment, they reaffirmed their commitment to each other, to their peoples, and to the dream of a shared future. The journey to Harmony had begun, carrying with it the potential to reshape the course of human-Psychian relations forever. The shuttle's engines hummed as it carried Walter, Zara, and the other colonists towards their new home on Harmony. As they left the horizon behind, a sense of anticipation filled the air. However, their journey was about to take an unexpected turn. Incoming ion storm. Commander Ethan Reeves' voice crackled over the intercom. Brace for impact. Walter instinctively reached for Zara, pulling her close as the shuttle shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and emergency lights bathed the cabin in an eerie red glow. We've lost navigation and life support, Reeves announced, his voice tense but controlled. I'm initiating emergency landing procedures on the nearest habitable planet. As the shuttle plummeted through the atmosphere of an unknown world, Walter and Zara exchanged a determined look. Their fingers intertwined, drawing strength from each other as they prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. The landing was rough, but Reeves managed to set the shuttle down in one piece. As the dust settled, Walter took charge, his military training kicking in. Everyone stay calm, he called out. We need to assess our situation and establish a base camp. Zara's ears twitched as she scanned their surroundings. I hear running water nearby, she reported. And there's a forested area to the east that could provide shelter. Working together, Walter and Zara led the colonists in salvaging materials from the shuttle. They constructed makeshift shelters using torn metal panels and synthetic fabric, their complementary skills creating a seamless workflow. As night fell on the planet they dubbed Haven, an eerie howl echoed through the darkness. Walter tensed, his hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. "Something's coming," Zara whispered, her fur standing on end. Moments later, a pack of monstrous creatures burst from the underbrush. They resembled a terrifying hybrid of earth wolves and Kytion predators, with razor-sharp claws and gleaming fangs. Walter sprang into action, grabbing a makeshift spear fashioned from shuttle debris. "Zara, on my 6," he shouted. The two moved in perfect synchronization, Zara's enhanced senses alerting them to incoming attacks, while Walter's combat expertise guided their defensive maneuvers. They fought back-to-back, protecting the other colonists as they fended off the alien beasts. When the attack subsided, leaving the ground littered with the bodies of the strange predators, both humans and Caitians stared at Walter and Zara in awe. Their seamless cooperation had not only saved lives, but also bridged the gap between the two species in a way that no diplomatic effort ever could. In the aftermath, Dr. Elena Rodriguez approached them, her eyes alight with scientific curiosity. "Your physiological responses during the attack were fascinating," she said. "It's as if your bodies were operating on the same wavelength." Walter and Zara exchanged a glance, both acutely aware of the connection humming between them. As days passed, the colonists worked tirelessly to repair the shuttle's communication systems. However, their efforts were hampered by the planet's unusual magnetic field. "We need to find higher ground," Walter announced during a strategy meeting. "The mountain range to the north might offer a clear transmission point." Zara nodded in agreement. "Walter and I will lead an expedition. Our enhanced abilities give us the best chance of success." As they trekked through Haven's alien landscape, Walter and Zara found their bodies continuing to adapt. Their senses sharpened, allowing them to detect approaching danger long before it became visible. Their muscles seemed to grow stronger with each passing hour, enabling them to navigate treacherous terrain with ease. Climbing the mountain proved to be a grueling task, but their newfound abilities and unwavering trust in each other propelled them forward. During a brief rest on a narrow ledge, Walter turned to Zara, his breath catching in his throat as he took in her fierce beauty. "Zara, he began, but words failed him. Instead, he reached out, cupping her face in his hand. Zara leaned into his touch, a low purr rumbling in her chest. The air between them crackled with energy as they gave in to the attraction that had been building since their first encounter. Their lips met in a passionate kiss, their bodies pressing together as if trying to meld into one being. The unique compatibility between their species became startlingly apparent as they explored each other with fervent touches and heated caresses. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. They broke apart, eyes wide with alarm as they realized the mountain was not just a mountain. It was a volcano on the verge of eruption. "We need to reach the summit and send that signal now," Walter said urgently. They raced against time, their enhanced abilities allowing them to scale the remaining distance with incredible speed. At the peak, they hurriedly set up the makeshift transmitter, praying it would penetrate Haven's magnetic interference. As lava began to flow down the mountainside, Walter and Zara started their descent, their movements perfectly coordinated. They leaped over fissures, swung across gaps using vines, and slid down steep inclines, their bodies moving in harmony as if they shared a single mind. They reached the base camp just as the ground began to shake violently. "Evacuate now," Walter shouted, his voice carrying over the panicked cries of the colonists. In the chaos that followed, Walter and Zara's leadership shone through. They guided the humans and Caitians to safety, their unwavering courage inspiring cooperation between the two species. As they watched the lava flow from a safe distance, Walter pulled Zara close. "We made it," he murmured, his voice thick with relief and something more. Zara nuzzled into his chest, her tail wrapping around his leg. "Together," she replied softly. The colonists began the process of establishing a new base camp, their shared ordeal forging bonds that transcended species. Inspired by Walter and Zara's obvious connection, other humans and Caitians began to form closer relationships, the lines between their two peoples blurring with each passing day. As night fell on their new home, Walter and Zara stood watch, their enhanced senses alert for any sign of danger. The future remained uncertain, but as long as they faced it side by side, they knew they could overcome any obstacle Haven might throw their way. At their side, little did they know that their drive would soon be tested in ways they could never have imagined. As the days turned into weeks, the colonists on Haven settled into a rhythm of survival and exploration. Their makeshift camp slowly transformed into a more permanent settlement, with sturdy structures replacing the initial emergency shelters. The shared experience of adversity had brought humans and Caitians closer together, fostering a sense of unity that transcended species barriers. However, nature had other plans for the fledgling colony. One evening, as Walter and Zara conducted their nightly perimeter check, they noticed an ominous bank of clouds on the horizon. The air grew heavy with electricity, and an eerie stillness settled over the landscape. "That doesn't look good," Walter observed, his enhanced vision picking up details that would have been invisible to normal human eyes. Zara's whiskers twitched as she scented the air. "A storm is coming. A big one." They barely had time to warn the others before the tempest struck with full force. Gale-force winds whipped through the camp, threatening to tear apart the structures they had so painstakingly built. Rain lashed down in sheets, quickly turning the ground into a treacherous quagmire. "We need to evacuate," Walter shouted over the howling wind. "Everyone, grab what you can carry and head for the caves." The colonists scrambled to salvage essential supplies as they made their way towards the nearby cave system they had previously scouted. Walter and Zara coordinated the evacuation, their enhanced strength and agility allowing them to assist those struggling against the brutal weather. As the last of the colonists reached the safety of the caves, Walter turned to Zara. "We need to go back for more supplies. The storm could last for days." Zara nodded, her eyes gleaming with dedication. "I'm with you." They assembled a small team of volunteers, a mix of humans and Caitians, and ventured back out into the maelstrom. The journey to the damaged shuttle was arduous, with each step a battle against the elements. Walter and Zara took point, using their heightened senses to navigate through the near-zero visibility. Upon reaching the shuttle, they worked quickly to gather medical supplies, ration packs, and portable power cells. As they loaded the last of the supplies, a powerful gust of wind rocked the shuttle, sending Walter and Zara tumbling into each other. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Their bodies pressed together, pulses racing in tandem. The air between them grew thick with pheromones, their enhanced biology amplifying their mutual attraction to an almost overwhelming degree. Zara's pupils dilated, her tail curling around Walter's leg. "Walter, He cupped her face in his hands, their breath mingling. "I know," he whispered, voice husky with desire. The moment was broken by a crash of thunder, jolting them back to the present. With renewed urgency, they gathered the remaining supplies and led their team back to the caves. Inside the relative safety of the caverns, Dr. Elena Rodriguez wasted no time in setting up a makeshift lab. As the storm raged outside, she conducted a series of tests on Walter and Zara, her scientific curiosity piqued by their continued physiological changes. "Fascinating," she muttered, poring over the results. Your DNA is undergoing a gradual restructuring. It's as if your bodies are adapting to each other at a genetic level. Walter and Zara exchanged a look, both thrilled and apprehensive at the implications. Their connection had grown stronger with each passing day, and now they had scientific evidence of just how deep that bond went. As the storm stretched on, the close quarters of the cave system forced humans and Caitians into constant interaction. Initial awkwardness gave way to camaraderie as they shared stories, skills, and the limited resources they had managed to salvage. Walter observed the growing bonds between the two species with a sense of pride and hope. He watched as a human engineer and a Kaition botanist huddled together over a datapad, discussing plans for more efficient hydroponics. Nearby, a group of mixed-species children played a game that seemed to combine elements of human and Kaition pastimes. When the storm finally abated, the colonists emerged to find their camp in ruins. The structures they had built lay scattered across the landscape, a sobering reminder of the planet's harsh realities. Walter took charge, his voice steady as he addressed the assembled colonists. We've faced challenges before, and we've overcome them together. This is no different. We'll rebuild, stronger than ever. Zara stepped forward, her presence a comforting counterpoint to Walter's. We'll divide into teams, mixing skills and species. Together, we are stronger than any storm. As the reconstruction efforts began, a group of colonists clearing debris made a startling discovery. Beneath the toppled remains of a storage unit, they uncovered a section of metallic flooring that clearly didn't belong to their camp. Walter and Zara rushed to the site, their enhanced senses immediately picking up on the artificial nature of the find. Carefully, they helped clear away the remaining debris, revealing what appeared to be a hatch of some kind. "This isn't natural," Walter murmured, running his hand over the smooth, cool surface. Zara's ears twitched with excitement. It looks like some kind of entrance. But to what? As they pondered their next move, the hatch suddenly illuminated with a soft, blue glow. Intricate patterns danced across its surface, responding to their presence. Walter and Zara exchanged a look of willpower. Whatever secrets lay beneath the surface of Haven, they would face them together. With a shared nod, they prepared to unlock the mysteries that awaited them, knowing that their actions could shape the future of both their species. Knowing that their actions could shape the future of both their peoples and the mysterious planet they now called home. As Walter and Zara descended into the opening, the hatch slid shut behind them with a soft hiss. They found themselves in a narrow corridor that seemed to stretch endlessly into the darkness. Their enhanced vision allowed them to navigate the passage with ease, each step echoing softly in confined space. "Do you feel that?" Zara whispered, her fur standing on end. "There's an energy in the air." Walter nodded, his skin tingling with an inexplicable electricity. "It's getting stronger the further we go." After what felt like hours of walking, the corridor opened into a vast chamber that took their breath away. As they stepped inside, the space came to life, illuminating with a soft, ethereal glow. Holographic displays flickered to life around them, filling the air with intricate patterns and alien script. "This is incredible," Walter breathed, his eyes wide as he took in the sight of advanced technology unlike anything he had ever seen. At the center of the chamber stood a massive cylindrical device, pulsating with a gentle blue light. As Walter approached it, drawn by an inexplicable urge, the device suddenly flared to life. A shimmering field of energy erupted from its core, enveloping both him and Zara in a cocoon of iridescent light. "Walter," Zara cried out, reaching for him instinctively. Their hands met just as the energy field intensified, sending waves of sensation coursing through their bodies. Walter felt as if every cell in his body was being rewritten, his muscles stretching and shifting beneath his skin. Beside him, Zara's form seemed to blur and change, her features becoming both familiar and alien at once. The transformation lasted only moments, but to Walter and Zara, it felt like an eternity. When the energy field finally dissipated, they stumbled apart, gasping for air. "Are you okay?" Walter asked, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. Zara looked up at him, her eyes widening in shock. "Walter, your face." He raised a hand to his cheek, feeling the soft fur that now covered his skin. His fingers, now tipped with retractable claws, traced the subtle changes in the shape of his face. He realized with a start that he could see every detail of Zara's transformed features, even in the dim light of the chamber. Zara had undergone a similar metamorphosis. Her feline features had softened, taking on more human characteristics while retaining her Kytion grace. Her fur was shorter, more like a soft down covering her skin, and her eyes held a new depth of expression. As they stood there, marveling at each other's changes, Walter suddenly heard Zara's voice in his mind, clear as day. "Can you hear me?" "Yes," he responded silently, amazed at the ease with which he could project his thoughts. "We're telepathic?" Their newfound mental connection seemed to amplify the emotions surging between them. Without a word, they came together in a passionate embrace, their transformed bodies fitting together with perfect harmony. The intensity of their physical and emotional response was overwhelming, unlike anything they had experienced before. As they explored their new forms and the depths of their connection, the chamber around them hummed with activity. Holographic interfaces sprang to life, presenting a wealth of information about Haven's creators and their grand vision for the planet. Walter and Zara absorbed the knowledge, their minds working in tandem to process the complex data. They learned of an ancient civilization that had created Haven as a sanctuary, a place where diverse species could evolve and thrive together. They wanted to create a new form of life, Zara mused silently, one that combined the best traits of different species. "And we're living proof that it's possible," Walter replied, a sense of wonder filling him. Their exploration was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps echoing through the corridors. Walter and Zara tensed, preparing to face their fellow colonists in their altered state. Commander Nylarin was the first to enter the chamber, her weapon drawn. She froze at the sight of Walter and Zara, her eyes widening in disbelief. What in the name of the Great Pride? Dr. Elena Rodriguez pushed past her, her scientific curiosity overriding any shock at the pair's appearance. "Fascinating," she breathed, already reaching for her datapad to begin documenting the changes. As the rest of the search team filed into the chamber, a mix of humans and Caitians, Walter and Zara stood side by side, their hands intertwined. They could sense the team's initial shock and unease, but also a growing undercurrent of amazement and hope. "It's still us," Walter said, his voice calm and reassuring. "We've just evolved." Zara nodded, her tail swishing gently behind her. "And we have so much to show you." As they began to demonstrate their new abilities and share the knowledge they had gained, the atmosphere in the chamber shifted. The team's apprehension gave way to excitement and curiosity, with humans and Caitians alike stepping forward to examine the ancient technology more closely. Commander Nylarin, her initial shock wearing off, began issuing orders to secure the site and establish a research outpost. Dr. Rodriguez was already deep in conversation with Walter and Zara, her questions coming rapid fire as she tried to understand the extent of their transformation. As the team worked to unravel the mysteries of the chamber, Walter and Zara stood at the center of it all, their minds and bodies perfectly in sync. They knew that their journey was just the beginning. In fact, it felt as if they were standing on the threshold of something far greater than they could have ever imagined. The ancient technology pulsed around them, hints of its vast potential barely scratching the surface. And in the distance, beyond the planet's atmosphere, two ships were approaching, one human, one Kytion, bringing with them a new chapter in the unfolding story of Haven. Haven's unfolding story. The colony's communication array picked up the incoming vessels, their signatures unmistakable. One human, one Kytion. Walter and Zara exchanged a knowing glance, their telepathic link humming with anticipation. "It's time," Walter projected, his thoughts tinged with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "We're ready," Zara responded, her mental voice steady and reassuring. They summoned the colony's leadership, setting in motion the preparations they had meticulously planned for this moment. Humans and Caitians moved with practiced efficiency, transforming the once chaotic camp into a showcase of interspecies cooperation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, her eyes bright with the fervor of scientific discovery, finalized her reports on the physiological changes observed in the colonists. Her fingers flew across her datapad, compiling data on the remarkable transformations, with particular emphasis on Walter and Zara's unique hybrid physiology. As the ships entered Haven's atmosphere, a hush fell over the colony. Walter and Zara stood at the forefront of the welcoming committee, their altered appearances a stark representation of Haven's potential. The vessels touched down in a clearing near the colony, kicking up swirls of multicolored dust. As the engines powered down, the ship's hatches opened with a pneumatic hiss. Admiral Hawthorne emerged first, his tall frame and stern expression a stark contrast to the vibrant alien landscape. Grand Admiral Xindar followed, his battle-scarred visage and piercing yellow eyes scanning the assembled colonists with keen interest. The two leaders froze mid-step as their gazes fell upon Walter and Zara. Admiral Hawthorne's eyes widened, his composure momentarily slipping. Grand Admiral Xindar's fur bristled, his tail swishing in agitation. Walter stepped forward, his voice calm and clear. "Admiral Hawthorne, Grand Admiral Xindar, welcome to Haven. I'm Walter Chun, and this is Zara. We have much to show you." The admirals exchanged glances, their shock evident. Xindar's ears flattened against his skull as he spoke, his voice a low growl. "What manner of beings are you?" Zara answered, her hybrid features displaying both human expression and Kytion grace. "We are the future admirals, the living proof of what humanity and Caitians can achieve together." The delegation was escorted to a makeshift conference room, hastily constructed from salvaged materials and native flora. Dr. Rodriguez launched into her presentation, her voice brimming with barely suppressed excitement as she detailed the colonists' adaptations. As the briefing progressed, the atmosphere grew tense. Conservative members of both human and Kytion contingents shifted uncomfortably, their expressions darkening with each new revelation. A hardline Kytion official, his fur a mottled gray, suddenly stood up. "I am Commander Razorclaw, and I demand that this abomination be stopped immediately." He snarled, baring his fangs. His outburst was met with a chorus of agreement from several human officials. Colonel Stearns, a square-jawed man with close-cropped hair, added his voice to the dissent. "We cannot allow this genetic corruption to continue. The purity of both our species is at stake." The conference room erupted into chaos, with officials shouting over one another. Admiral Hawthorne and Grand Admiral Xindar struggled to restore order. Walter caught Zara's eye, a silent understanding passing between them. Without a word, they rose and made their way to the chamber's exit. "Admirals," Walter called out, his voice cutting through the din. "If you truly wish to understand what's happening here, you need to see it for yourselves." Curiosity overrode caution, and the delegation followed Walter and Zara into the alien ruins. As they navigated the twisting corridors with ease, murmurs of amazement rippled through the group. The central chamber hummed to life as they entered, holographic displays springing into existence around them. Walter and Zara moved in perfect synchronization, their hybrid physiologies activating dormant systems and unlocking vast stores of knowledge. Admiral Hawthorne's stern facade cracked as he watched the ancient technology respond to the hybrid couple. "Incredible," he breathed, his eyes darting from one holographic display to another. Even Grand Admiral Xindar couldn't hide his fascination, his tail swishing with excitement as he absorbed the wealth of information before him. The moment of wonder was shattered by a sudden commotion. Commander Razorclaw, his face contorted with rage, lunged toward the central device. "I'll destroy this abomination," he roared. Walter reacted with lightning speed, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to intercept the Kytion mid-leap. Simultaneously, Zara disarmed Razorclaw with a swift, precise motion, her movements fluid and graceful. The chamber fell silent as the officials processed what they had just witnessed. The seamless teamwork and superior abilities displayed by Walter and Zara had left them stunned. Admiral Hawthorne cleared his throat, breaking the tense silence. "I believe," he said slowly, "that we need to reassess our position on Haven status." Grand Admiral Xindar nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Indeed, it seems we have much to discuss, Admiral." As the two leaders huddled together, speaking in low, urgent tones, Walter and Zara shared a moment of silent communication. They knew that whatever decision was made, Haven's future and their own would never be the same. The ancient technology pulsed with renewed energy, as if sensing the momentous changes on the horizon. As the days passed, the colony on Haven grew and evolved at an astonishing pace. The initial shock of Walter and Zara's transformation gave way to curiosity and, for many, a desire to explore the potential of hybridization. However, not everyone embraced this new future with open arms. Whispers of discontent began to circulate through the colony. Humans and Caitians who feared the loss of their species' purity started to gather in secret, their numbers growing with each passing day. They called themselves the Genetic Preservation Front, or GPF, led by the charismatic human Marcus Stark and the fierce Kytion female Zirikal. Walter and Zara, their hybrid senses attuned to the colony's pulse, picked up on the growing tension. They brought their concerns to Commander Nylarin, who agreed to form a specialized security task force under their leadership. One evening, as Walter and Zara patrolled the outskirts of the colony, they detected an unusual energy signature emanating from an abandoned storage facility. Silently communicating through their telepathic link, they approached with caution. "Something's not right," Walter projected, his enhanced hearing picking up muffled voices from within. Zara nodded, her hybrid eyes piercing the darkness. "I count at least 6 individuals inside. Their scents are mixed, human and Kytion." They crept closer, their movements fluid and synchronized. As they neared the entrance, a snippet of conversation reached their ears. "The time for action is now," a deep voice growled. "We must strike before more of our people are corrupted by this alien technology." Walter and Zara exchanged a glance, recognizing the voice as belonging to Marcus Stark. They silently signaled for backup before making their move. In a swift, coordinated action, they burst through the door. The room's occupants, a mix of humans and Caitians, jumped to their feet in surprise. Marcus Stark, a tall, imposing man with a shock of white hair, stood at the center of the group. "Well, well," he sneered, recovering quickly from the shock. "If it isn't our resident abominations." Zirikal, a sleek Kytion with fur the color of burnished copper, bared her fangs. "You have no right to interfere with our meeting." Walter stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "We have every right when you're plotting against the colony. Stand down, all of you. You're under arrest for conspiracy and potential sedition." The room erupted into chaos. GPF members lunged at Walter and Zara, but the hybrid pair moved with inhuman speed and grace. They disarmed and subdued their attackers with precision, their movements a blur to the untrained eye. In the midst of the scuffle, Marcus and Zirikal slipped away through a hidden exit. Walter noticed their absence and quickly alerted the backup team. "They're getting away," he projected to Zara. "We need to pursue." As they gave chase, Dr. Elena Rodriguez's voice crackled over their communicators. "Walter, Zara, I need you back at the lab immediately. I've made a breakthrough in my research on the hybridization process." Torn between their duty to apprehend the GPF leaders and the potential importance of Dr. Rodriguez's discovery, Walter and Zara made a split-second decision. They handed off the pursuit to the backup team and rushed to the research facility. Inside the lab, Dr. Rodriguez's eyes were bright with excitement. "You're not going to believe this," she said, gesturing to a holographic display of complex genetic data. "The hybridization process doesn't just enhance physical abilities. It has the potential to dramatically extend the lifespan of both humans and Caitians." Walter and Zara absorbed the information, their minds working in tandem to process the implications. Before they could fully discuss the findings, an alarm blared through the colony. Commander Nyleran's voice came over the general communication system. "All security personnel to alert stations. We have multiple reports of sabotage across the colony. This is not a drill." Walter and Zara sprung into action, their enhanced abilities allowing them to coordinate the colony's defense from multiple locations simultaneously. As they worked to contain the chaos, they realized the true scale of the GPF's plan. "They're going after the ancient ruins," Zara said, her voice tight with urgency. "We need to get there now." As they raced toward the heart of Haven's mysteries, the sky lit up with the arrival of two ships, one human, one Kaition. Admiral Hawthorne and Grand Admiral Xindar had chosen the worst possible moment for their inspection. Walter's mind raced as he assessed the situation. "We need to split up," he projected to Zara. "You secure the ruins. I'll brief the admirals and coordinate the colony's defense." Zara nodded, her hybrid form a blur, as she sped toward the ancient structure. Walter turned his attention to the arriving dignitaries, knowing that the next few hours would determine the fate of everything they had worked for on Haven. The colony hung in the balance, its future uncertain as the forces of progress and preservation clashed. Walter and Zara found themselves at the center of the storm, their unique abilities and unbreakable bond the key to navigating the challenges ahead. As the conflict escalated, they knew that their actions in the coming moments would shape not just their own destinies, but the future of human-Scythian relations across the galaxy. As Walter raced to meet the arriving dignitaries, the colony buzzed with nervous energy. The GPF sabotage attempts had thrown Haven into chaos, but the arrival of Admiral Hawthorne and Grand Admiral Xindar added a new layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. Walter reached the landing site just as the two leaders disembarked from their respective vessels. He quickly briefed them on the ongoing crisis, his enhanced mind processing and relaying information at an astonishing rate. "Admiral Hawthorne, Grand Admiral Xindar," Walter said, his voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. "We're dealing with a coordinated attack by a group opposed to hybridization. They're targeting key infrastructure and the ancient ruins." The two leaders exchanged glances, their expressions grim. Admiral Hawthorne spoke first, his voice tinged with concern. "We need to secure the colony immediately. How can we assist?" As Walter coordinated with the admirals, Zara fought her way through waves of GPF saboteurs at the ruins. Her hybrid physiology allowed her to outmaneuver and subdue the attackers with ease, but their numbers seemed endless. Just as Zara secured the central chamber, a transmission from Walter crackled through her comm device. "Zara, we've contained most of the sabotage attempts. The admirals are calling for an emergency meeting of all colonists. They want to address the situation head-on." Within hours, the entire population of Haven gathered in the colony's main square. The air was thick with tension as Admiral Hawthorne stepped forward to address the crowd. "Citizens of Haven," he began, his voice carrying across the assembly. "The events of today have made it clear that we can no longer ignore the divisions within our community. It's time to make a decision about the future of this colony." Grand Admiral Xindar joined him, his tail swishing with agitation. "We propose an immediate colony-wide referendum on the continuation of hybridization research. It is time for every voice to be heard." The announcement sent shockwaves through the crowd. Supporters and opponents of hybridization began to argue, their voices rising in a cacophony of conflicting opinions. Walter and Zara exchanged a worried glance. They knew that the outcome of this vote would determine not just their own future, but the fate of Haven itself. The following weeks were a whirlwind of debates, information sessions, and impassioned pleas from both sides. Walter and Zara found themselves at the center of it all, their very existence a testament to the potential of hybridization. On the day of the referendum, the colony held its collective breath. As the votes were tallied, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Finally, Commander Nylerin stepped forward to announce the results. "With a 58% majority," she declared, her voice echoing across the silent square, "the colony has voted in favor of continuing hybridization research. With the implementation of stricter regulations and oversight." The announcement was met with a mix of cheers and dismayed murmurs. Walter and Zara felt a wave of relief wash over them, but they knew that the real work was just beginning. In the days that followed, a group of hardline purists from both human and Kytion factions approached the colony leadership. Their spokesperson, a stern-faced human named Helena Reeves, addressed the council. "We cannot, in good conscience, remain in a colony that embraces what we see as an affront to our species," she stated firmly. "We request permission to establish a separate settlement on the far side of the planet." After much deliberation, the council agreed to their request. The purists departed, naming their new settlement Purity Enclave. Their exodus created a palpable tension within Haven, as fears of potential conflict between the two settlements began to simmer. Meanwhile, Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked tirelessly in her lab, building on her previous discoveries. Weeks of relentless research finally yielded results. "Walter, Zara," she called out excitedly as the hybrid couple entered her lab. "I've done it. I've developed a controlled hybridization process that allows for gradual genetic modifications in volunteers." The news spread quickly, attracting a wave of immigrants from both human and Kytion homeworlds. Haven's population swelled, putting a strain on the colony's resources and infrastructure. Walter and Zara found themselves at the forefront of addressing these new challenges. They organized teams to expand housing, improve food production, and upgrade the colony's power systems. But it quickly became clear that more drastic measures were needed. "We need to explore more of the ruins," Walter proposed during a council meeting. "There might be technology there that could help us support our growing population." Zara nodded in agreement. "We've only scratched the surface of what's hidden beneath Haven's surface. Who knows what we might find?" With the council's approval, Walter and Zara led an expedition into the unexplored sections of the ancient ruins. As they ventured deeper than ever before, their hybrid senses attuned to every detail, they discovered a vast underground network of advanced technology. "Look at this," Zara breathed, her eyes wide with wonder as she examined a control panel. With a few deft movements, she activated a holographic display showing a massive automated manufacturing facility. Walter's attention was drawn to another section of the ruins. "Zara, over here," he called out. "I think I've found some sort of energy production system." As they delved deeper into the ruins, cataloging their discoveries and marveling at the advanced technology, Walter and Zara couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of uncovering something monumental. Little did they know that their findings would soon catapult Haven into a new era of progress and challenge, reshaping not just their colony, but potentially the future of human-Scythian relations across the galaxy. As Walter and Zara emerged from the ruins, their minds reeling from the implications of their discoveries, they were met by a delegation led by Commander Nylarin. "We've been trying to reach you," Nylarin said, her tail twitching with agitation. "The Council has called an emergency meeting. It seems our recent referendum has sparked some unexpected developments." Walter and Zara exchanged a glance, their enhanced senses picking up on the tension in the air. They followed Nylarin to the Council chambers, where they found the room buzzing with activity. Admiral Hawthorne stepped forward as they entered. "Walter, Zara, we need your expertise. The signing of the Haven Accords has brought new challenges we didn't anticipate." Grand Admiral Xindar nodded in agreement. "We're implementing policies to manage relations between the main colony, the Purity Enclave, and off-world governments. Your unique perspective will be crucial." Before Walter could respond, a commotion outside the chamber caught their attention. The doors burst open, revealing a group of young hybrids led by a charismatic figure with striking features that seemed to blend the best of both human and Kytion traits. "We demand to be heard," the leader called out, his voice carrying a mix of human inflection and Kytion growl. "I am Kai, and we represent the second generation of hybrids born on Haven." The council members murmured among themselves, some looking concerned, others intrigued. Walter stepped forward, his enhanced mind quickly assessing the situation. "Kai, what brings you here today?" he asked, his tone calm but authoritative. Kai's eyes, a mesmerizing blend of human and Kytion features, locked onto Walter's. "We demand representation on the colony's leadership council. Our perspective is unique and crucial for Haven's future." As Kai spoke, Zara noticed something odd. The lights in the chamber flickered briefly, and she heard a faint hum coming from the communication devices. She glanced at Walter, who nodded imperceptibly, having noticed the same thing. Admiral Hawthorne frowned. "This is highly irregular. We can't simply add new members to the council without proper procedure." Kai's group bristled at the dismissal, but before the situation could escalate further, the chamber was plunged into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, casting an eerie glow across the faces of those present. "What's happening?" someone called out. Walter's enhanced senses kicked into high gear. He could hear the rapid heartbeats of those around him, smell the sharp tang of fear in the air. "Everyone remain calm," he said, his voice cutting through the growing panic. "Zara and I will investigate." As they left the chamber, Zara leaned in close. "This isn't an isolated incident," she whispered. "I've been picking up reports of similar malfunctions across the colony." Walter nodded grimly. "We need to get to the control center. I have a feeling this is more than just a technical glitch." They made their way through the dimly lit corridors, their hybrid abilities allowing them to navigate with ease. As they approached the control center, they heard raised voices and the sound of equipment being moved. Peering around the corner, they saw a group of figures hunched over the main control panel. Walter's enhanced vision picked out details in the low light. Some of the intruders were human, others Kytion, and a few seemed to be hybrids. "Saboteurs," Zara breathed. "But from where? The Purity Enclave?" Walter shook his head. "I'm not sure. Their movements suggest military training. Could be off-world agents." Before they could formulate a plan, one of the saboteurs looked up, his eyes widening as he spotted them. "Intruders!" he shouted, reaching for a weapon. Walter and Zara sprang into action, their hybrid physiology allowing them to move with incredible speed and precision. They disarmed the first two attackers before the others could even react. As they fought, Walter noticed a familiar face among the saboteurs. Marcus Stark, the leader of the GPF they had encountered earlier. "Stark," he called out, "what's the meaning of this?" Stark sneered, backing away towards a hidden panel in the wall. "You'll never understand. Haven must be purged of this abomination." He slammed his hand on the panel, revealing a hidden passage. As Stark and the remaining saboteurs retreated into the darkness, Walter and Zara gave chase. The passage led them deep beneath the colony, twisting and turning through a network of tunnels they had never seen before. Their enhanced senses allowed them to navigate the darkness, following the faint sounds of their quarry ahead. Suddenly, the tunnel opened up into a vast chamber. Walter and Zara skidded to a halt, their eyes widening in amazement. Before them, bathed in a soft, pulsing light, stood an enormous spacecraft of clearly alien origin. "By the stars," Zara whispered, her tail twitching with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "What is this place?" Walter's mind raced, processing the implications of their discovery. This ship. It must belong to the species that created Haven, the original terraformers. As they approached the vessel, they noticed Marcus Stark and his group huddled near what appeared to be an entrance. They were frantically working on a control panel, trying to gain access. "Stop!" Walter called out, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You don't know what you're doing." Stark turned, his face contorted with a mix of fear and tenacity. "Stay back. Abominations. This technology is too dangerous to be left in the hands of genetic monstrosities like you." Before Walter and Zara could reach them, Stark managed to activate something on the panel. The alien ship hummed to life, a surge of energy pulsing through the chamber and beyond. Walter and Zara felt a sudden rush of power course through their bodies, their hybrid abilities momentarily amplified beyond anything they had experienced before. They exchanged a look of shock and wonder, realizing that this energy surge must be affecting all hybrids on Haven. As the power coursed through them, they knew that this discovery would change everything. The future of Haven, the delicate balance between hybrids and purists, and perhaps even the fate of human-Scythian relations across the galaxy now hung in the balance. With their enhanced abilities temporarily boosted, Walter and Zara prepared to face whatever challenges this new development would bring. The alien ship loomed before them, a testament to Haven's mysterious past and a key to its uncertain future. The alien ship loomed before them, a testament to Haven's mysterious past and a key to its uncertain future. Suddenly, a low hum emanated from the vessel, growing in intensity. Walter and Zara exchanged a glance, their heightened senses picking up on subtle vibrations coursing through the chamber. "It's activating," Zara said, her ears twitching. "We need to alert the Council." As they turned to leave, a holographic display flickered to life near the ship's entrance. Strange symbols scrolled across the projection, accompanied by a series of pulsing lights. "Look," Walter pointed. "It's a countdown." Before they could investigate further, Dr. Elena Rodriguez's voice crackled over their communicators. "Walter, Zara, we need you back at the lab immediately. We've detected massive energy fluctuations across the colony." They raced back through the tunnels, emerging into a colony gripped by chaos. The surge from the alien ship had affected Haven's power grid, causing sporadic blackouts and malfunctioning equipment. At Dr. Rodriguez's lab, they found a team of hybrid scientists huddled around various screens and instruments. Elena looked up as they entered, her eyes wide with excitement and concern. "The energy pulse from the ship," she began. "It's not just affecting our technology. It's interacting with the genetic structure of every living thing on Haven." Walter leaned in, studying the data. "What does this mean for the colony?" Elena took a deep breath. "If my calculations are correct, the ship is designed to terraform Haven. But not just the environment. It's going to alter the planet's ecosystem to better suit hybrid physiology. The implications of this revelation hit Walter and Zara like a physical force. They knew they had to act fast. "We need to call an emergency council meeting," Zara said. "And this time, we need everyone there. The Purity Enclave, the second-generation hybrids, everyone." Within hours, the council chamber was packed with representatives from all factions. The tension in the room was palpable as Walter and Zara presented their findings. Admiral Hawthorne's brow furrowed as he listened. "Are you saying this ship could fundamentally change our entire planet?" Before they could respond, a new voice cut through the murmurs. "Not just change it, Admiral. Evolve it." All eyes turned to the speaker, a tall, lean human with piercing gray eyes and a shock of white hair. He strode confidently to the center of the room. "Dr. Alexei Volkov," he introduced himself. "I arrived on Haven recently, and I believe I can offer some insights into the situation." Walter and Zara exchanged a wary glance. They hadn't heard of this scientist before, but something about his demeanor put them on edge. Dr. Volkov activated a holographic display, showing complex genetic models. The terraforming process won't just alter Haven's environment. It has the potential to accelerate hybrid evolution, unlocking new abilities and potentially extending lifespans even further. His words sent a ripple of excitement and concern through the assembled crowd. Grand Admiral Xindar leaned forward, his tail twitching with interest. "And what of the non-hybrid population? What will this mean for them?" Before Dr. Volkov could respond, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Commander Nylerin rushed to a communications panel, her fur standing on end as she listened to the incoming message. "We have a situation," she announced grimly. "A group of purist extremists has taken control of the main power relay station. They're threatening to overload the colony's power grid unless we destroy the alien ship and halt all hybridization research." The room erupted into chaos. Walter raised his voice above the din. "Who's leading them?" Nylerin's eyes met his. "Marcus Graves. He claims to be acting on behalf of the Purity Enclave, but their leadership denies any involvement." Walter turned to Zara, his mind racing. "We need to handle this ourselves. If we send in regular security forces, it could escalate the situation." Zara nodded, her muscles already tensing for action. "Agreed. We'll assemble a team of hybrid security personnel. Our enhanced abilities give us the best chance of resolving this quickly and with minimal casualties." As Walter and Zara prepared to leave, Kai, the young hybrid leader, stepped forward. "Let me come with you. My people deserve to be part of this." After a moment's hesitation, Walter nodded. "All right, but you follow our lead." The hybrid strike team moved swiftly through Haven's underground tunnels, using their enhanced senses to navigate the darkness. As they approached the power relay station, Walter signaled for the team to halt. "Something's not right," he whispered. "I'm picking up electromagnetic signatures that shouldn't be here." Zara's ears twitched as she focused her hearing. Mechanical whirring, too precise for standard equipment. They rounded a corner and found themselves face to face with a hovering security drone, its sensors glowing an ominous red. Before anyone could react, the drone unleashed a barrage of stun pulses. Walter and Zara moved in perfect sync, their hybrid reflexes allowing them to dodge the attack. Kai wasn't as fortunate, catching a glancing blow that sent him stumbling. "Advanced off-world tech," Zara growled as she disabled the drone with a well-placed shot. "The purists shouldn't have access to this kind of equipment." They fought their way through the facility, encountering more drones and automated defenses. Their hybrid abilities were pushed to the limit as they navigated laser grids, bypassed biometric scanners, and outmaneuvered combat robots. Finally, they reached the main control room. Marcus Graves stood at the central console, his finger hovering over a button that could send Haven into darkness. "Stay back, abominations," he snarled. "One more step, and I'll overload the grid. This colony will burn before we allow your kind to corrupt humanity." Walter raised his hands, his voice calm but firm. "Think about what you're doing, Marcus. This won't just affect hybrids. You'll be hurting everyone on Haven, including your own people." As Walter kept Graves distracted, Zara silently signaled to Kai. The young hybrid understood immediately, using his agility to circle behind Graves. In a flash of movement, Kai launched himself at Graves, tackling him away from the console. Walter and Zara moved in, quickly subduing the extremist leader. As they secured Graves and his followers, Walter's communicator crackled to life. Dr. Rodriguez's voice came through, tinged with urgency. "Walter, you need to get back here immediately. I've made a discovery about the alien ship that changes everything." Walter looked at Zara, both of them knowing that their night was nowhere near the end. As they prepared to head back to the colony center, the weight of Haven's future pressed heavily upon them. The alien ship's countdown continued, ticking away the moments until a decision would have to be made, one that would alter the course of their world forever. As Walter and Zara rushed back to the colony center, the weight of Haven's future pressed heavily upon them. The alien ship's countdown continued, ticking away the moments until a decision would have to be made, one that would alter the course of their world. Upon reaching Dr. Rodriguez's lab, they found her poring over data streams and holographic projections. She looked up as they entered, her eyes wide with excitement and apprehension. "We've isolated a small area for controlled testing," Elena explained, gesturing to a map of Haven. "The terraforming process has begun, and the results are extraordinary." Walter and Zara followed her to a large view screen, displaying real-time footage of the designated control zone. The transformation was already visible. Plants grew at an accelerated rate, their leaves shimmering with an otherworldly iridescence. Animals darted through the undergrowth, their forms subtly altered, adapting to the changing environment. "And the effects on hybrids?" Zara asked, her tail twitching with anticipation. Elena pulled up another set of data. "Remarkable. Enhanced sensory perception, improved physical capabilities. It's as if the terraforming process is fine-tuning your genetic structure." As they discussed the implications, Dr. Alexei Volkov entered the lab. His piercing gray eyes scanned the data before them with intense interest. "Fascinating," he murmured. "The potential applications for further human-Scythian hybridization are limitless." Walter noticed a gleam in Volkov's eyes that made him uneasy, but before he could address it, alarms blared throughout the colony. Commander Nyleron's voice came over the intercom. "Walter, Zara, we have a situation developing in the main plaza. A group of non-hybrid colonists is staging a protest against the terraforming experiment." They rushed to the scene, finding a crowd gathered around a makeshift podium. A human woman with fiery red hair and intense green eyes addressed the agitated group. "I'm Sarah Clark," she announced as Walter and Zara approached, "and we demand an immediate halt to this reckless experiment. The changes are happening too fast. What about those of us who choose to remain as we are?" Walter stepped forward, hands raised in a placating gesture. "We understand your concerns, Sarah. But this process could benefit all of Haven's inhabitants, hybrid and non-hybrid alike." As they debated, Zara's enhanced hearing picked up a commotion from the direction of the control zone. She tapped her communicator, connecting to Kai. "Kai, what's happening?" His voice came through, tinged with worry. "A group of second-generation hybrids is attempting to expand the terraforming process without authorization. I'm trying to reason with them, but they're not listening." Walter and Zara exchanged a glance, knowing they needed to act quickly. They split up, Walter staying to address the protesters, while Zara raced to the control zone. Upon arrival, Zara found Kai struggling to contain a group of eager young hybrids. Their eyes gleamed with an almost feverish excitement as they worked to adjust the alien technology. "Stop," Zara commanded, her voice carrying the full weight of her authority. "This isn't a decision for us to make alone. We need to consider the entire colony." As she worked to defuse the situation, Walter continued to negotiate with Sarah and the non-hybrid protesters. The tension in the air was palpable, with both sides passionately arguing their positions. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. A low rumble echoed through the colony, and a brilliant light burst from the alien ship. The terraforming process had intensified, its effects now visible even outside the control zone. In the midst of the chaos, Walter's communicator crackled to life. It was Elena, her voice urgent. "Walter, you need to see this. The terraforming process has uncovered something, a network of underground chambers connected to the alien ship. They're filled with technology we've never seen before." As the colony grappled with the rapid changes, Walter and Zara regrouped, knowing they faced a critical juncture. They needed to explore these newly discovered chambers, while also managing the growing tensions among Haven's population. With a shared nod of grit, they set off towards the alien ship, ready to uncover the secrets that lay hidden beneath Haven's surface. The fate of their world hung in the balance, and every step they took would shape the future of human-sentient relations and the evolution of their hybrid society. As Walter and Zara rushed towards the alien ship, alarms blared throughout the colony. The ground shook beneath their feet, and a brilliant flash of light erupted from the spacecraft. They exchanged a worried glance, knowing that time was running out. Suddenly, their communicators crackled to life with an urgent message from Admiral Hawthorne. "Walter, Zara, we have a critical situation. Long-range sensors have detected a massive fleet entering the system. It's the Galactic Purity Front." Walter's eyes widened. "How long do we have?" "Minutes at most," Hawthorne replied, his voice grim. "They're moving fast and with purpose." Without hesitation, Walter and Zara sprinted to the main control center. As they entered, screens lit up with incoming data showing the approaching enemy force. "We need to activate the new defense systems," Zara said, her fingers flying over the alien console. The technology responded to her hybrid physiology, interfaces shifting and adapting. Walter nodded, placing his hand on a nearby panel. Energy surged through him as the ship's systems recognized his unique genetic signature. Raising shields now. Outside, shimmering barriers of energy sprang to life around key colonial structures. The newly terraformed landscape seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, plants and wildlife reacting to the rising tension. As the first wave of enemy ships breached Haven's atmosphere, Walter coordinated the colony's defense from the control center. Holographic displays showed the positions of both friendly and hostile forces. "Zara, take a squad and engage them in the air," Walter commanded. "Use the terraformed environment to your advantage." Zara nodded sharply and raced to the hangar. Within moments, she was airborne, leading a group of hybrid fighters. The enhanced plant life below provided natural cover, its iridescent leaves absorbing some of the enemy fire. In the skies above Haven, chaos erupted. Zara's enhanced reflexes allowed her to weave through a barrage of enemy fire, her ship responding to her thoughts almost instantly. She barrel-rolled, lining up a shot on an enemy fighter, and fired. The hostile craft exploded in a ball of flame. "Nice shot." Kai's voice crackled over the comm. He was leading another squad, using the terrain to ambush enemy ground forces. Back in the control center, Walter received an urgent message from Dr. Elena Rodriguez. "Walter, we've discovered a dormant weapon system in the alien ship. It could turn the tide, But what? Walter asked, his attention split between the battle displays and Elena's transmission. It requires a massive surge of bioenergy from hybrid individuals to activate, Elena explained. The process could be dangerous, potentially pushing your physiology to its limits. Walter's teeth clenched as he weighed the options. The colony's defenses were holding, but barely. They needed an edge. "Do it," he ordered. "Zara, Kai, we need you back here now." Minutes later, Walter, Zara, Kai, and a group of second-generation hybrids gathered around the alien weapon. Dr. Rodriguez attached a series of biosensors to their bodies. "Are you sure about this?" Zara asked, her eyes meeting Walter's. He nodded grimly. "We don't have a choice." As one, they placed their hands on the alien device. Energy surged through them, searing pain flooding their bodies. Walter gritted his teeth, feeling as if every cell in his body was on fire. Beside him, Zara gasped, her fur standing on end. Their skin began to glow, a soft bioluminescence spreading across their bodies. Neural patterns shifted, intertwining in ways they had never experienced before. Through the pain, Walter felt a new connection forming between himself and the others, especially Zara. The weapon hummed to life, energy building to a crescendo. With a thought from Walter, it fired. A pulse of blinding energy erupted from the colony, engulfing the galactic purity front ships. Systems failed, engines died, and the once mighty attack force drifted powerless in Haven's orbit. As the light faded, Walter slumped to the ground, exhausted. Zara caught him, her own legs trembling with fatigue. Around them, the other hybrids were in similar states of exhaustion. "We did it," Kai whispered, his voice filled with awe and fatigue. Walter nodded weakly, then tapped his communicator. "Admiral Hawthorne, the enemy fleet has been neutralized. Send teams to secure the disabled ships and take the crews into custody." As the immediate danger passed, Walter became aware of the changes in his body. His senses seemed sharper, his connection to Zara and the other hybrids stronger. He could feel the pulse of the terraformed environment around him in a way he never had before. But as he looked at the non-hybrid colonists rushing to assist them, he saw fear and uncertainty in their eyes. The gap between hybrid and non-hybrid had just widened significantly, and Walter knew that the real challenges were only beginning. In the distance, he could see Sarah Clark and her followers watching the scene unfold. Their expressions were a mix of awe, fear, and something else, a hunger for the power they had just witnessed. Walter's communicator chimed again. It was Admiral Hawthorne, his voice grave. "Walter, we have a situation. The Human-Cytian Alliance. It's fracturing. We need you and Zara to return home immediately." As Walter processed this news, he realized that Haven's victory might have just ignited a much larger conflict. The future of Human-Cytian relations hung in the balance, and he and Zara were about to be thrust into the center of a galactic political storm. As Walter processed this news, he realized that Haven's victory might have just ignited a much larger conflict. The future of Human-Cytian relations hung in the balance, and he and Zara were about to be thrust into the center of a galactic political storm. "Understood, Admiral," Walter replied, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. "We'll prepare for immediate departure." Zara helped Walter to his feet, her own legs still unsteady. "We need to address the colony before we leave," she said, her eyes scanning the crowd of hybrids and non-hybrids alike. Walter nodded, taking a deep breath to steady himself. They made their way to the center of the plaza, where Sarah Clark and her followers stood watching warily. "People of Haven," Walter began, his voice carrying across the hushed crowd. "We've faced an unprecedented threat and emerged victorious. But our work is nowhere near the end. Zara and I must return to our home systems to address the growing concerns about our hybrid nature and the future of human-Scythian relations. Murmurs rippled through the gathering. Zara stepped forward, her tail swishing anxiously. "We leave Haven in your capable hands. Kai will oversee the colony's defense, and Dr. Rodriguez will continue monitoring the terraforming process. We ask for your patience and cooperation during this challenging time." As they spoke, Walter noticed the varied reactions among the colonists. The hybrids stood tall, pride evident in their posture, while many non-hybrids shifted uneasily, their eyes darting between the speakers and the alien ship looming in the background. Within hours, Walter and Zara boarded a sleek diplomatic vessel, their hearts heavy with the weight of responsibility. As Haven shrank in the view screen, Zara intertwined her fingers with Walter's, seeking comfort in their shared touch. Their arrival at the human capital world was met with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. As they disembarked, Walter felt the weight of countless eyes upon them. Whispers followed in their wake, a mixture of awe and fear palpable in the air. "They look so different," one official murmured, not quite sotto voce. Zara's ears twitched, picking up the comment. She squeezed Walter's hand, a silent reminder of their shared strength. The meeting with human leaders, including Admiral Hawthorne, took place in a grand chamber adorned with holographic displays of Earth's history. Walter stood before the assembled dignitaries, his hybrid appearance a stark contrast to the sea of human faces. "Distinguished leaders," Walter began, his voice steady despite the tension in the room, "I come before you with grave news. Our investigation has uncovered evidence of the Galactic Purity Front's infiltration into both human and Kytion governments." Gasps and murmurs erupted throughout the chamber. Walter raised a hand, calling for silence. He proceeded to present the evidence, his enhanced senses allowing him to pick up on the subtle reactions of those present. A twitch of an eye here, a quickened heartbeat there. Each reaction carefully noted and filed away for further investigation. As the implications of Walter's revelations sank in, the political establishment was thrown into chaos. Investigations were launched, and suspected collaborators were swiftly taken into custody. Walter's hybrid abilities proved invaluable during the interrogations that followed, his heightened perception allowing him to detect even the slightest signs of deception. Meanwhile, Zara embarked on her own diplomatic mission to the Kytion homeworld. The reception she received was equally mixed. As she stood before the Kytion High Council, Grand Admiral Xindar at its head, she could feel the conflicting emotions emanating from her fellow Caitians. "Esteemed Council," Zara began, her tail swishing nervously behind her, "I stand before you as a bridge between our two great species. My unique perspective as a human-Scythian hybrid offers us an unprecedented opportunity to foster understanding and cooperation." Her words were met with a range of reactions. Some council members leaned forward, intrigued by the possibilities she presented. Others recoiled, their fur dripping with barely concealed distaste. As Zara continued her address, she drew upon her hybrid nature to navigate the complex cultural nuances of Kytion society. She spoke of the strength found in diversity, the potential for growth through collaboration, and the shared challenges that both humans and Caitians faced in an ever-changing galaxy. While Walter and Zara worked tirelessly to stabilize relations between their home worlds, troubling reports began to filter in from Haven. Kai, left in charge of the colony's defense, had implemented a series of increasingly stringent security measures. His actions, driven by a growing belief in hybrid superiority, had created a widening rift between the hybrid and non-hybrid colonists. Sarah Clark, the fiery leader of the non-hybrid faction, organized peaceful protests against Kai's policies. The once harmonious colony now teetered on the brink of internal conflict. As tensions on Haven escalated, Walter and Zara found themselves undergoing rigorous medical examinations on their respective home worlds. The results were both fascinating and concerning. Walter's cellular structure showed signs of continued evolution, adapting to new environments at an accelerated rate. On the Kytion homeworld, geneticists discovered that Zara's hybrid physiology had unique implications for reproduction, potentially allowing her to interbreed with both humans and Caitians. These findings raise complex questions about the future of both species and the potential long-term consequences of hybridization. As Walter and Zara grapple with the implications of their evolving biology, they received an urgent message from Dr. Elena Rodriguez on Haven. The terraforming process has accelerated beyond our initial predictions, Elena reported, her holographic image flickering with static. The ecosystem is changing rapidly, and some of the second-generation hybrids are exhibiting new abilities. We need you back here immediately. Walter and Zara exchange a look of concern. Their diplomatic mission, already fraught with challenges, would have to be cut short. As they prepared to depart, however, they found themselves targets of a coordinated assassination attempt by extremists inspired by the Galactic Purity Front's ideology. In the chaos that ensued, Walter and Zara's hybrid abilities allowed them to evade their attackers and neutralize the threat. But the incident served to further complicate the already tense political situation, leaving both human and Kytion officials on edge. As they boarded their ship for the return journey to Haven, Walter and Zara felt the weight of their experiences pressing down upon them. The constant scrutiny, the need to control their hybrid nature, and the escalating crises on multiple fronts had taken a toll on their relationship. "I never thought I'd say this," Zara murmured as they prepared for takeoff. "But I miss Haven. At least there, we could be ourselves." Walter nodded, understanding all too well the longing in her voice. As their ship broke free of the planet's atmosphere, they both felt a sense of relief wash over them. But their journey back to Haven was nowhere near the end, and new challenges loomed on the horizon. As they prepared for the long journey back to Haven, a sudden alert blared to the ship's communication system. "Unidentified vessel approaching Haven's orbit," the AI announced. "Origin unknown. Attempting to establish contact." Walter and Zara exchanged glances, their exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "Can you get a visual?" Walter asked, moving to the control panel. The screen flickered to life, revealing a sleek, otherworldly craft unlike anything they had encountered before. Its hull shimmered with an iridescent sheen, seeming to shift and change as they watched. "We should investigate," Zara said, her tail twitching with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. "This could be crucial information about Haven's creators." Walter nodded, his fingers flying over the controls to adjust their course. "Agreed. We'll make brief contact before addressing the situation back home." As they approached Haven, the alien vessel began its descent. Walter opened a communication channel, his voice steady despite the tension thrumming through his body. "Unknown craft, this is Walter Chin of Haven Colony. Please identify yourself." There was a moment of silence before a response came, not through the ship's speakers, but directly into their minds. The sudden intrusion made both Walter and Zara gasp, their enhanced senses reeling from the unexpected contact. "Greetings, Walter Chun and Zara of Haven," a melodious voice echoed in their thoughts. "We are the Synth Collectives, descendants of another seeded world. We come in peace and with much to share." As the alien ship landed, Walter and Zara disembarked, their bodies tingling with a strange energy. The ramp of the Synth Collective vessel lowered, revealing a being that defied easy description. It appeared both organic and synthetic, its form fluid and ever-changing. "I am Xionare," the being communicated telepathically. "We have been monitoring the progress of seeded worlds across the galaxy. Your Haven has shown remarkable development." Walter stepped forward, his mind racing with questions. "You know about Haven's creators? About why we were made?" Xionare's form shimmered, conveying a sense of solemnity. The original creators were preparing for a cosmic threat, one that would require the combined strengths of multiple species to overcome. Your hybridization is part of that preparation. As Xionra spoke, Walter and Zara felt their bodies changing, adapting to the planet's unique energy. Their connection to each other and to Xionra deepened, thoughts and emotions flowing between them with increasing ease. Your evolution is accelerating, Xionra observed. This is both promising and potentially dangerous. We can provide you with information to stabilize and control the terraforming process. A small, crystalline object materialized in front of them. This data crystal contains the knowledge you need. However, be warned. The path of evolution, once started, cannot be fully halted without dire consequences. Walter reached out, his fingers closing around the crystal. As he touched it, a flood of information surged through him, momentarily overwhelming his senses. Zara steadied him, her own mind blown from the shared experience. We offer to send a small delegation to assist your colony, Xionra continued. Our experience may prove invaluable during this tumultuous period. Walter and Zara agreed, recognizing the potential benefits of having guidance from more advanced hybrids. As they prepared to depart, the weight of their new knowledge and responsibilities settled upon them. The journey back to Haven's main settlement was tense, filled with silent communication between Walter and Zara as they processed the information from the Sync collectives. As they approached, the changes to Haven's landscape became apparent. New, alien flora sprouted from the ground, and unfamiliar creatures darted through the undergrowth. Landing their ship, they were immediately confronted by the colony's dire situation. Kai's security forces, now openly displaying their hybrid abilities, stood in tense opposition to a group of non-hybrid colonists led by Sarah Clark. "We need to act quickly," Zara said, her ears flattening against her head as she sensed the hostility in the air. Walter nodded, already reaching out with his new telepathic abilities to gather more information about the situation. The cacophony of thoughts and emotions threatened to overwhelm him, but he pushed through, focusing on the task at hand. They made their way to the colony's central plaza, the Sync Collective delegates following close behind. The assembled colonists fell silent as they approached, all eyes fixed on the strange new arrivals. "People of Haven," Walter began, his voice carrying across the crowd. "We return with crucial information and assistance. The changes we're experiencing are part of a greater purpose, but we now have the means to stabilize and control them." He held up the data crystal, which glowed softly in response to Haven's unique energy. With this knowledge, we can bring the terraforming process under control and find a balance between our hybrid and non-hybrid populations. As Walter spoke, he and Zara began to interface with Haven systems, guided by the information from the data crystal. The process was grueling, taxing their hybrid physiology to its limits. Sweat beaded on their brows as they worked in tandem, their minds melding with the planet's energy. Gradually, the chaotic growth of alien flora slowed, and the erratic weather patterns began to stabilize. The colonists watched in awe as Walter and Zara, glowing with an otherworldly light, brought Haven's transformation under control. With the immediate environmental crisis addressed, they turned their attention to the social unrest. Using their newfound telepathic abilities, they facilitated an open dialogue between all factions. The presence of the Sync Collective served as a living example of successful hybrid evolution, helping to assuage some fears among the non-hybrid population. As discussions progressed, a new governing structure began to take shape. A council with representatives from all factions, including the Sync Collectives, was proposed to ensure all perspectives would be considered in Haven's future development. The assembly concluded with a tentative peace, though underlying tensions remained. As the crowd dispersed, Walter and Zara found themselves drawn to a newly formed crystal formation on the outskirts of the colony. The crystals pulsed with energy, resonating with their hybrid physiology. As they approached, the world around them seemed to fade away. Their bodies hummed in harmony with the crystal's energy, their connection to each other and to Haven itself deepening beyond anything they had experienced before. In that moment of profound connection, Walter and Zara's minds and bodies intertwined, sharing sensations and emotions on a level that transcended their individual selves. They saw glimpses of Haven's potential future, of a hybrid civilization that could one day face the cosmic threat foreseen by their creators. Their revelatory experience was abruptly interrupted by an urgent communication. Admiral Hawthorne's holographic image appeared before them, his face grave. "Walter, Zara, we have a critical situation." The Admiral's voice crackled with static. "A rogue faction of human and Kytion purists has stolen experimental weapons technology. They're threatening to use it against hybrid-friendly worlds, including Haven." The news jolted Walter and Zara back to the present reality. They exchanged a look, their bodies still thrumming with energy from their encounter at the crystal formation. The challenges they face extended far beyond Haven, and their actions in the coming days could determine the fate of human-Cytian relations and the future of hybrid evolution throughout the galaxy. As they hurried back to the colony to prepare their defenses, Walter and Zara knew that the true test of their abilities and their vision for a united future was just beginning. The gravity of the situation caused great concern on Walter and Zara as they rushed back to Haven's central command center, their bodies still humming with energy from their encounter at the crystal formation. The newly formed governing council had already assembled when they arrived, faces etched with concern. Walter wasted no time in briefing them on the imminent threat. "A rogue faction of human and Kytion purists has stolen experimental weapons technology," he explained, his voice steady despite the urgency. "They're threatening to use it against hybrid-friendly worlds, including Haven." Murmurs of alarm rippled through the room. Zara stepped forward, her tail swishing with nervous energy. "We need to implement a planet-wide defense protocol immediately." The council agreed without hesitation. Within minutes, orders were dispatched to activate Haven's advanced shield systems and mobilize the hybrid defense force. Walter turned to the Synth Collective delegates, their fluid forms shimmering with an otherworldly light. "We need to enhance our early warning systems. Can you integrate your technology with our existing infrastructure?" The delegates communicated their assent telepathically, and Walter felt a surge of relief. He led them to the command center's main terminal, where they began the intricate process of merging their advanced systems with Haven's. Meanwhile, Zara sought out Dr. Elena Rodriguez. They huddled over holographic displays, analyzing the data crystal's contents and discussing potential countermeasures against the stolen weapons. "If we can harness the terraforming energy," Zara suggested, her eyes gleaming with inspiration, "we might be able to create a defense matrix that could neutralize their technology." Elena nodded, her fingers flying over the controls. "It's risky, but it might be our best option. Let's get to work." As the preparations continued, Walter and Zara became acutely aware of the changes in their own bodies. Their skin now exhibited a subtle, shifting pattern that seemed to react to their emotions and the surrounding environment. When they touched the command center's control panels, they could feel the energy flowing through the systems more acutely than ever before. "Zara," Walter called, his voice low with wonder. "Look at this." He placed his hand on a nearby wall, and the shifting patterns on his skin aligned with the energy currents running through the building. Zara mirrored his action, gasping as she felt the connection. "We can channel the terraforming energy more efficiently now," she realized. "This could be a huge advantage." Walter nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need to train others to do this. A team of hybrids with this ability could be crucial for our defense." They quickly assembled a group of hybrid volunteers, leading them to the crystal formation where their own transformation had accelerated. As the volunteers approached the crystals, the air seemed to crackle with potential. "Focus on the energy around you," Walter instructed, his voice calm and steady. "Let it flow through you, become a part of you." The volunteers closed their eyes, their bodies beginning to glow faintly as they attuned themselves to Haven's unique energy signature. Suddenly, one of them gasped, her eyes flying open. "I can hear." "Everyone," she whispered, awe and fear mingling in her voice. The other volunteers nodded in agreement, their faces a mix of excitement and confusion. Walter and Zara exchanged a look of surprise. They hadn't anticipated this development, a collective consciousness forming among the group. "This is incredible," Zara breathed. "The tactical advantages of this hive mind capability." Walter nodded, already seeing the potential. "We'll need to integrate this into our defense strategies immediately." As they worked to harness these new abilities, Haven's long-range sensors suddenly blared to life. Multiple unidentified vessels had entered the system. "It's time," Walter said, his teeth clenched. "Zara, we need to move forward with the infiltration mission." They hurried back to the command center, where the governing council had reconvened. The room was a flurry of activity as they explained their plan to infiltrate the hidden research facility and disable the weapons. "It's our best chance to neutralize the threat before it reaches Haven," Zara argued. After a tense debate, the council reluctantly approved the mission. Walter and Zara quickly assembled their team. 2 Synth Collective delegates and a group of elite hybrid operatives trained in the new energy harnessing techniques. As they prepared to board their specially modified ship, Walter and Zara took a moment to observe Haven's defenses springing to life. The hybrid hive mind network activated, linking all capable individuals in a unified defensive grid. Kai and Sarah Clark, once at odds, now worked side by side to coordinate the ground defenses. Walter turned to Zara, their eyes meeting in a moment of silent understanding. The bond between them had never felt stronger, their minds and bodies in perfect sync as they prepared to face the unknown. The ship's engines hummed to life as they boarded. Through the view screen, they watched as Haven's outer defense systems engaged the approaching vessels, energy weapons clashing against hybrid-enhanced shields in a spectacular display. Cloaking technology activated, the ship's AI announced as they broke orbit. Walter and Zara stood side by side, their bodies resonating with Haven's energy as they slipped past the ongoing space battle. The fate of their home, their people, and the future of hybrid evolution throughout the galaxy now rested on the success of their mission. As they set course for the hidden research facility, Walter allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. "Whatever happens," he said softly, "we face it together." Zara nodded, her hand finding his. "Together," she agreed, her voice filled with quiet strength. The stars streaked by as their ship accelerated, carrying them towards a confrontation that would shape the future of human-Psychian relations and test the limits of their newfound abilities. The mission ahead was fraught with danger, but Walter and Zara were ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. Their bodies and minds united in purpose as they hurtled through the vast expanse of space. Space as their ship raced towards its destination. The tension on board was palpable, each member of the team acutely aware of the high stakes of their mission. As they neared the hidden research facility, the ship's sensors suddenly blared to life. Walter's eyes widened as he processed the incoming data. "Zara, we've got a problem," he said, his fingers flying over the control panel. "Their defensive systems are far more advanced than we anticipated. They've detected us despite our cloaking technology." Zara moved swiftly to join him at the helm. "Impossible," she muttered, her tail twitching with agitation. "Unless—" Her words were cut short as the ship rocked violently, struck by a barrage of energy blasts from the facility's defense turrets. Alarms screamed throughout the vessel as Walter engaged in a series of evasive maneuvers, his hybrid physiology allowing him to push the ship's capabilities to their limits. "Everyone, brace yourselves," Walter called out as he sent the ship into a tight spiral, narrowly avoiding another volley of fire. Zara gritted her teeth, her claws digging into the console as she fought to maintain her balance. "I'm going to try and hack into their security network," she announced, her eyes glazing over as she tapped into her hybrid abilities to interface with the ship's systems. As Walter continued to pilot the ship through a deadly dance of laser fire and defensive shields, Zara delved deep into the facility's digital defenses. Her mind raced through streams of data, searching for vulnerabilities she could exploit. Meanwhile, back on Haven, the colony's defenses sprang into action as the unidentified vessels launched their coordinated attack. Kai and Sarah Clark stood side by side in the command center, their previous animosity forgotten in the face of the current crisis. "Activate the hybrid hive mind network," Kai ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. Sarah nodded, her fingers dancing across the control panel as she initiated the sequence. Across Haven, hybrid defenders felt their consciousnesses linked together, forming a vast, interconnected web of shared awareness. They moved as one, taking up positions around key strategic points with unprecedented coordination and efficiency. Sarah turned to Kai, her expression grim. "The outer defensive perimeter is holding for now, but these attackers, their weapons are like nothing we've ever seen before." Kai nodded, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of the battle. "We'll hold them off as long as we can. Walter and Zara have to succeed. Everything depends on it." Back at the research facility, Walter guided their damaged ship towards a concealed landing area near the facility's perimeter. As they touched down, the team sprang into action. "Send collective delegates. Focus on repairing the ship," Walter instructed as he and Zara prepared to lead the infiltration team. "We'll need a quick exit once we've completed the mission." The delegates acknowledged the order, their fluid forms already spreading out to assess and repair the damage to the vessel. Walter turned to Zara, their eyes meeting in a moment of silent communication. Without a word, they moved towards the facility, their enhanced senses on high alert as they navigated the treacherous terrain. Inside the facility, Walter and Zara led their team through a labyrinth of corridors, their hybrid abilities allowing them to sense the presence of security patrols before they came into view. They moved swiftly and silently, their bodies adapting to the environment around them. As they approached the central laboratory, Walter held up a hand, signaling the team to halt. He closed his eyes, focusing his senses on what lay beyond the sealed doors. "The experimental weapons are in there," he whispered to Zara. "But there's something else. Someone." Zara nodded, her own senses confirming Walter's assessment. "We have no choice. We need to move now." With a shared look of persistence, they breached the laboratory doors. The scene that greeted them was one of cold, clinical efficiency. Banks of computers lined the walls, their screens displaying complex equations and schematics. In the center of the room stood a series of ominous-looking devices, pulsing with an eerie energy. As Walter and Zara moved to sabotage the weapon systems, a voice rang out, stopping them in their tracks. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." They turned to see a man in a pristine lab coat step out from behind a bank of machinery. His eyes gleamed with a mixture of curiosity and malice as he regarded the hybrid intruders. "Dr. Vex, I presume?" Walter said, his voice low and controlled. The scientist smiled a cold, calculated expression. "Indeed, and you must be the hybrid abominations I've heard so much about. I must say, you're even more fascinating in person." Zara tensed beside Walter, her claws extending instinctively. "Your work ends here, Doctor. We won't let you use these weapons against our people. Dr. Vex's smile widened as he reached for a device on a nearby console. Oh, I think you'll find that you're not in a position to stop me. Before Walter or Zara could react, Dr. Vex activated the device. A wave of energy pulsed through the room, and suddenly, Walter and Zara were hit with an overwhelming sensation of pain and disorientation. They stumbled, their connection to Haven's energy abruptly severed. Fascinating, Dr. Vex mused as he watched them struggle. It seems the anti-hybrid technology works even better than anticipated. Despite the agony coursing through their bodies, Walter and Zara forced themselves to stand. They exchanged a look of relentless drive as Dr. Vex's security team poured into the room. As the battle erupted around them, Walter and Zara fought through the pain, their bodies adapting even as they struggled against the effects of the anti-hybrid weapon. They knew that the fate of Haven, and perhaps the entire future of human-Scythian relations, hung in the balance of this desperate confrontation. Moment, their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. Despite the overwhelming odds, they weren't finished yet. Walter's mind raced, searching for a solution. Suddenly, an idea struck him. He glanced at the experimental weapons, then back at Dr. Vex. In a split second, he made his decision. "Zara, cover me," Walter shouted, diving towards the nearest weapon. Zara reacted instantly, her hybrid reflexes allowing her to move with lightning speed. She engaged the security team, her claws flashing as she deflected their attacks, buying Walter the precious seconds he needed. Walter reached the weapon, his hands moving swiftly over its controls. He could feel the anti-hybrid energy pulsing through it, threatening to overwhelm his senses. Gritting his teeth, he pushed through the pain, his hybrid physiology adapting even as he worked. "What are you doing?" Dr. Vex demanded, his voice rising in panic as he realized Walter was interfering with his creation. Walter didn't respond, his focus entirely on the task at hand. With a final adjustment, he activated the modified weapon. A wave of energy pulsed outward, but instead of targeting the hybrids, it streaked towards the facility's communications array. "No!" Dr. Vex cried out, but it was too late. The modified anti-hybrid weapon shot through space, racing towards the incoming enemy fleet. As it neared its target, it released a powerful electromagnetic pulse. The effect was immediate and devastating. The attacking ship's propulsion and weapons systems went dark, leaving them drifting helplessly in space. Walter turned to Zara, his eyes gleaming with triumph. "Let's move!" They sprang into action, subduing the stunned security team and securing Dr. Vex as their prisoner. Zara quickly downloaded the data on anti-hybrid technology while Walter gathered the remaining weapons. "We need to get back to Haven," Zara said urgently as they raced through the facility's corridors. They burst out of the building, heading towards their ship. The Synth Collective delegates had completed the repairs, the vessel humming with renewed energy. As they boarded, Walter felt a strange sensation coursing through his body. He glanced at Zara and saw that she was experiencing the same thing. Their skin had taken on a metallic sheen, gleaming under the ship's lights. "What's happening to us?" Zara whispered, her voice a mixture of awe and concern. Before Walter could respond, he felt an electric tingle in his fingertips. Instinctively, he reached out towards the ship's control panel. To his amazement, he could manipulate the systems with mere thought, a small electromagnetic field forming around his hand. "It seems our abilities are evolving," Walter said, his mind already racing with the possibilities. "We can use this to our advantage." As the ship lifted off, Walter and Zara worked in perfect synchronization, their new abilities allowing them to push the vessel to its limits. They streaked through space, the stars blurring around them as they raced back to Haven. As they approached their home planet, The scene that greeted them was one of controlled chaos. The disabled enemy ships floated aimlessly, while Haven's defense forces moved to secure them. However, the moment of relief was short-lived. Long-range sensors detecting multiple contacts, the ship's AI announced. A second wave of enemy reinforcements approaching from various vectors. Walter and Zara exchanged a grim look. They had won this battle, but the war was just getting started. Upon landing, they rushed to the colony's central command center, their prisoner in tow. The governing council was already assembled, their faces etched with worry. "We've neutralized the immediate threat," Walter reported, his voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. "But there's more coming." As Walter briefed the council on the events at the research facility, Zara laid out the data they had retrieved. The council listened intently, their expressions a mix of hope and concern. "We need to act fast," Zara urged. "We have the means to defend ourselves, but we also need to consider a diplomatic approach." The council deliberated briefly before coming to a decision. "We'll implement a two-pronged strategy," the council leader announced. "Walter, work with Dr. Rodriguez to integrate this new technology into our defense systems. Zara, prepare a diplomatic message for the approaching forces." As the meeting adjourned, Walter felt a sudden surge of energy. He turned to Zara, seeing the same recognition in her eyes. Without a word, they both knew something was happening at the crystal formation where their transformation had begun. They rushed to the site, their enhanced speed allowing them to cover ground quickly. As they approached, they saw a group of hybrid children gathered around the crystals. At the center stood a young girl named Lyra, her small form glowing with an otherworldly light. The crystals were growing and reshaping rapidly, responding to the children's presence. Walter and Zara watched in amazement as the structures twisted and expanded, forming intricate patterns that pulsed with energy. As they stepped closer, the newly formed crystal structures began to resonate with their hybrid physiology. Walter felt a tingling sensation spread from his core to his extremities. He looked down to see his skin transforming completely, taking on a fully metallic appearance. Beside him, Zara gasped as she experienced the same change. "Walter," she breathed, "I think we've just taken another evolutionary leap." Walter nodded, his mind already racing with the implications. He reached out, focusing his thoughts, and watched in awe as a large electromagnetic field formed around his hand. "We need to harness this," he said, turning to Zara. "If we can replicate these effects in other hybrids, we might stand a chance against the incoming fleet." Zara nodded, her eyes shining with willpower. "Let's get to work." As they began to organize teams to study and potentially replicate the effects, Walter couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. They had overcome seemingly insurmountable odds before, and now, with these new abilities, they had a fighting chance. The second wave of enemy ships entered the system, their weapons primed and ready. But this time, Haven was prepared. The planetary defense grid hummed to life, powered by the combined efforts of the hybrid population and the crystal formation's energy. Walter and Zara took their positions at the heart of the defense network, their bodies resonating with the energy flowing through Haven systems. As the enemy fleet approached, they exchanged a look of quiet purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, defending their home and the future of human-Scythian relations. The battle was about to begin, and the fate of Haven hung in the balance. Balance. The enemy fleet loomed ever closer, their weapons primed and ready to strike. Walter and Zara exchanged a final glance, their metallic skin gleaming under the command center's lights. Without a word, they moved into action. As the first volley of enemy fire streaked towards Haven, Walter and Zara's newly enhanced abilities came to life. Their metallic skin shimmered, deflecting energy beams that would have vaporized normal matter. Zara raised her hand, an electromagnetic field materializing around it. With a flick of her wrist, she redirected an incoming barrage of missiles, sending them harmlessly into space. Walter interfaced directly with the planetary defense grid, his consciousness merging with the intricate network of sensors and weapons. Through this connection, he coordinated the efforts of the hybrid defenders spread across Haven's surface. His enhanced mind processed vast amounts of data, predicting attack patterns and adjusting shield strengths within human speed and precision. Incoming on Vector 273, Walter called out, his voice resonating with an otherworldly timbre. Zara, reinforce the eastern quadrant. Zara nodded, her body humming with energy as she channeled Haven's power through the crystal formation. The planetary shield pulsed with renewed strength, repelling a concentrated assault from the enemy's lead ships. For hours, the battle raged on. Walter and Zara moved in perfect synchronization, their bodies and minds attuned to each other and to Haven itself. They became the heart of the planet's defense, their enhanced abilities proving crucial in maintaining the shields and coordinating counterattacks. As a lull settled over the battlefield, Walter and Zara took a moment to catch their breath. Their metallic skin glistened with an iridescent sheen, a testament to the energy coursing through their hybrid bodies. It was then that Dr. Elena Rodriguez's urgent message came through. Walter, Zara. Dr. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm. I've analyzed the anti-hybrid technology data. There's a potential vulnerability in your physiology. Prolonged exposure to Haven's energy might lead to cellular instability. You need to disconnect from the grid immediately. Walter and Zara exchanged concerned looks. The implications of Dr. Rodriguez's warning were clear, but so was the danger still facing Haven. We can't abandon our post, Zara said, her voice firm despite the fatigue evident in her eyes. Walter nodded in agreement. But we can't ignore this risk either. Kai, he called out to their trusted lieutenant, gather your team. You're taking over the main defense grid. Kai stepped forward, his own skin showing the first signs of metallic transformation. We're ready, he said, tenacity etched on his face. As Walter and Zara prepared to disconnect from the defense systems, alarms blared throughout the command center. On the main view screen, a new threat materialized. The enemy had deployed a weapon unlike anything they had seen before, its energy signature interacting chaotically with Haven's atmosphere. It's targeting our terraforming systems, Zara realized, her eyes widening in alarm. Without hesitation, Walter and Zara reintegrated themselves into Haven's defense network. The risk to their own physiology paled in comparison to the immediate threat facing their home. As they reconnected, their enhanced senses overwhelmed them with information. They could feel every fluctuation in Haven's atmosphere, every tremor in its crust. The enemy weapon was unraveling years of careful adaptation, creating storms and seismic disturbances that threatened to tear the colony apart. Walter reached out with his mind, interfacing with the Synth Collective delegates. We need a countermeasure, he communicated, sharing his analysis of the weapon's effects. As the Synth Collective processed the data, Zara worked with Dr. Rodriguez to stabilize the affected areas. She manipulated electromagnetic fields on a massive scale, creating barriers to contain the worst of the environmental damage. Minutes stretched into hours as Walter and Zara pushed their hybrid bodies to the limit. They could feel the strain in every cell, their metallic skin beginning to show hairline fractures. But they persevered, their focus unwavering as they fought to save their home. Finally, a solution emerged. Using their ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields, Walter and Zara created a resonance frequency that neutralized the enemy weapon's effects. As they implemented the countermeasure, they could feel the immediate impact. Haven's atmosphere began to stabilize, the seismic activity subsiding, but the victory came at a cost. As the immediate threat passed, Walter and Zara felt their bodies begin to falter. Their electromagnetic fields fluctuated wildly, and the fractures in their metallic skin deepened. "Walter," Zara gasped, her voice strained, "we need to end this. Now." Walter nodded, his mind already racing with a daring plan. "We're going to communicate directly with the enemy commander," he said, his voice filled with drive. Using their enhanced abilities, Walter and Zara bypassed conventional communication channels. They projected their consciousness directly into the enemy flagship systems, creating a virtual environment for this unprecedented confrontation. As their minds interfaced with the enemy's ship, their physical bodies on Haven showed signs of severe strain. The fractures in their metallic skin widened, and their electromagnetic fields began to collapse. In the virtual space, Walter and Zara stood face to face with the enemy commander, a being whose features were hidden behind an imposing mask. They presented their evidence, showing the benefits of controlled hybridization and the potential for peaceful coexistence. "This war is unnecessary," Zara argued, her virtual form flickering with the strain of maintaining the connection. "We can work together, learn from each other." Walter added, "The technology we've developed, the advancements we've made, they could benefit both our peoples." As they made their case, they could feel their physical bodies weakening. The cellular instability Dr. Rodriguez had warned about was accelerating, threatening to tear them apart at a molecular level. Just as it seemed their bodies would give out, a new sensation washed over them. Back on Haven's surface, the hybrid children had gathered around Walter and Zara's prone forms. Led by young Lyra, they formed a circle, their nascent abilities creating a stabilizing field. Walter and Zara felt their deterioration halt, held in check by the children's combined power. It gave them the strength to continue their virtual negotiation, the fate of Haven hanging in the balance. The enemy commander remained silent, analyzing the information presented. Walter and Zara waited, their virtual forms tense with anticipation. The future of human-Cytian relations, the survival of Haven, and their own lives all depended on the next few moments. As they waited for the commander's response, Walter and Zara became aware of a new energy emanating from the circle of children on Haven. It was as if their protective field was evolving, taking on new properties they couldn't yet understand. The potential of this next generation of hybrids was beginning to manifest in ways they had never anticipated. The enemy commander finally stirred, reaching up to remove the imposing mask. What would be revealed, and how would it impact the future of Haven? Walter and Zara braced themselves for the answer that would shape the destiny of their world. Human and Kytion hybrid. The face that emerged was a striking blend of feline and human features, with piercing eyes that held both wisdom and weariness. "I am Admiral Vexthor," the being said, its voice a low rumble. "Your demonstration of power and tenacity has intrigued me. Perhaps there is more to this hybridization than we initially believed." Walter and Zara exchanged a look of cautious hope. "We're willing to share our knowledge," Walter said, "to work together for a peaceful solution." Admiral Vexthor nodded slowly. "A temporary ceasefire will be implemented. We have much to discuss." As the virtual environment dissolved, Walter and Zara found themselves back in their physical bodies on Haven's surface. The strain of their prolonged connection hit them like a physical blow, and they collapsed to the ground, their metallic skin cracking and flaking. Dr. Elena Rodriguez rushed to their side, medical scanner in hand. "Stay still," she ordered, her face etched with concern. The children's stabilizing field prevented catastrophic damage, but you've both pushed yourselves to the brink. Walter tried to sit up, but found his body unresponsive. "The fleet?" he managed to ask. "They're holding position," Kai reported, kneeling beside them. "The ceasefire is in effect. You did it." Zara reached out, her fingers intertwining with Walter's. Despite their exhaustion, they shared a moment of relief. Haven had survived, and a door to potential peace had been opened. Over the next few days, Walter and Zara underwent intensive medical treatment under Dr. Rodriguez's care. Their hybrid physiology worked overtime to repair the damage, surprising even Elena with its resilience. Your cellular structure is adapting, Dr. Rodriguez explained, showing them holographic representations of their DNA. It's becoming more stable, more efficient. I think this intense energy manipulation triggered another evolutionary leap. Walter flexed his hand, watching as the metallic skin flowed, like liquid mercury. It feels different, he noted. More responsive. Zara nodded in agreement. I can sense the electromagnetic fields around us with greater precision. It's as if our connection to Haven's energy has deepened. As they recovered, Haven's governing council convened to discuss the ceasefire and potential negotiations. Sarah Clark, representing the non-hybrid population, argued passionately for a diplomatic mission to the enemy flagship. We need to capitalize on this opportunity, she insisted. Face-to-face talks could be the key to lasting peace. The council agreed, appointing Kai to lead the delegation. His unique perspective as a transitioning hybrid made him the ideal candidate to bridge the gap between the two sides. While preparations for the diplomatic mission were underway, a new challenge emerged on Haven's surface. Marcus Graves, a charismatic non-hybrid colonist, began organizing protests against what he called forced evolution. We have the right to remain human, Graves shouted to a growing crowd. Our identities, our very essence, is at stake. We demand equal rights and opportunities for those who choose to stay unmodified. The protest added a layer of tension to an already complex situation. Sarah Clark, recognizing the validity of these concerns, proposed a comprehensive integration plan to address the growing social divide. Meanwhile, Walter and Zara focused on harnessing their evolving abilities. In a specially designed training facility, they worked to refine their control over electromagnetic fields and their newly adaptive metallic skin. Concentrate on the field's edges, Walter instructed a group of young hybrids. Feel the energy flow and direct it with your thoughts. Zara demonstrated, creating a shimmering dome of electromagnetic energy around herself. The children watched in awe as she manipulated the field's shape and intensity with fluid grace. As they trained the next generation of hybrid defenders, Kai's diplomatic team made progress on Admiral Vex Thor's flagship. The negotiations were tense but productive, with both sides presenting their cases for and against hybridization. We propose a controlled hybridization trial, Kai explained, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. Willing volunteers from both Haven and your fleet would participate, allowing you to observe the benefits firsthand while maintaining strict safety protocols. Admiral Vex Thor's expression was unreadable, but there was a glimmer of interest in his eyes. And if we agree to this experiment, what guarantees do we have? We're willing to allow a team of your scientists to oversee the process, Kai offered. Full transparency every step of the way. As the diplomatic talks continued, Dr. Rodriguez's team made a breakthrough in understanding Walter and Zara's enhanced physiology. The couple volunteered for a series of experiments, eager to contribute to the growing body of knowledge about hybrid potential. The changes in your DNA are remarkable, Dr. Rodriguez explained, her excitement palpable. Your genetic structure has become more resilient, more adaptable. This could be the key to solving the cellular instability issues in other hybrids. Walter and Zara exchanged a look of hope. If their experiences could pave the way for safer, more stable hybridization, the potential for peaceful coexistence between humans and Caitians might finally be realized. As news of these developments spread throughout Haven, the colony found itself at a crossroads. The outcome of the diplomatic negotiations, the proposed hybridization trial, and the integration of non-hybrid colonists all hung in the balance. Walter and Zara, their bond strengthened by their shared ordeal, stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They knew that their actions, and the actions of every citizen of Haven, would shape the future of human-Scythian relations and the course of hybrid evolution throughout the galaxy. In the command center, Walter and Zara reviewed the latest reports from Kai's diplomatic team. The holographic display showed the positions of both fleets, still holding their uneasy truce. "Admiral Vexthor is considering our proposal," Zara said, her voice tinged with cautious optimism. "But there's still so much at stake." Walter nodded, his metallic skin shimmering under the soft light. "We've come this far. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together." As they stood side by side, their hands intertwined, the future of Haven and the entire hybrid experiment hung in the balance. The next moves they made would determine not just their own fate, but the fate of two species and countless worlds beyond. As the future of Haven hung in the balance, Walter and Zara wasted no time in preparing for the challenges ahead. They recognized that strengthening Haven's defenses and advancing hybrid research were crucial steps in securing their home's future. In the days following the ceasefire, Walter and Zara worked tirelessly to establish a new training facility on the outskirts of the colony. The complex was designed to help hybrids master their evolving abilities, incorporating lessons learned from their recent battle experiences. "This chamber simulates high-gravity environments," Walter explained to a group of young hybrids, gesturing to a large, spherical room. "You will need to adapt your electromagnetic manipulation to compensate for the increased force." Zara demonstrated, her metallic skin rippling as she generated a field that allowed her to move effortlessly in the simulated heavy gravity. The trainees watched in awe, their eyes wide with excitement and persistence. As the training facility took shape, Haven prepared to welcome a delegation from Admiral Vexthor's fleet. Dr. Elena Rodriguez led the visiting scientists on a tour of the research facilities, her voice steady and confident as she explained the safeguards and ethical considerations in place for the controlled hybridization trial. "We've implemented a multi-stage screening process for volunteers," Dr. Rodriguez said, gesturing to a holographic display of genetic markers. "This ensures that only those with the highest compatibility undergo the procedure." The trial began with 50 volunteers, evenly split between Haven residents and members of Admiral Vexthor's crew. Walter and Zara, recognizing the importance of this moment, volunteered to act as mentors for the new hybrids. In a quiet moment between mentoring sessions, Walter found Zara gazing out over the colony from the observation deck. He joined her, their metallic skin glinting in the sunlight. "How are you holding up?" he asked, his voice soft. Zara turned to him, a small smile on her face. "It's intense but rewarding, seeing their faces when they first manipulate an electromagnetic field. It reminds me of our own journey." Walter nodded, understanding the depth of emotion in her words. Their shared experiences had created a bond between them that went beyond words, a connection that seemed to deepen with each passing day. As the initial hybridization trial showed promising results, interest grew among both Haven residents and members of Admiral Vexthor's fleet. A second wave of volunteers came forward, eager to participate in the evolutionary process. However, not everyone on Haven embraced the changes. Marcus Graves and his group of non-hybrid protesters continued to voice their concerns about potential discrimination. In response, Sarah Clark implemented her integration plan, establishing mixed work teams and social groups to foster understanding between hybrid and non-hybrid colonists. Walter and Zara found themselves at the forefront of these initiatives, using their status as respected leaders to promote unity. They participated in town hall meetings, work projects, and social events, always striving to bridge the gap between the two communities. During one such event, a community garden planting, Walter worked alongside a non-hybrid colonist named Tom. As they dug into the rich soil of Haven, Tom's initial hesitation gave way to curiosity. "So, what's it like?" Tom asked, wiping sweat from his brow. Being a hybrid, I mean. Walter paused, considering his words carefully. It's transformative, he said finally. It's like seeing the world through new eyes, feeling connected to everything around you in ways you never imagined. As they continued to work, Walter noticed Tom's thoughtful expression, a small sign that minds could be changed through understanding and shared experiences. Meanwhile, in the research labs, Dr. Rodriguez made a breakthrough that would change everything. Analyzing the data collected from Walter and Zara's recent energy manipulation, she discovered a way to stabilize the hybrid genome, potentially eliminating the risk of cellular degradation. Excited by this development, Walter and Zara volunteered to be the first test subjects for the new stabilization procedure. They lay side by side in the medical bay, their hands intertwined as Dr. Rodriguez initiated the treatment. A series of targeted energy pulses washed over them, designed to reinforce their genetic structure. Their bodies emitted a soft, pulsating glow, visible even through their metallic skin. As the procedure progressed, Walter and Zara felt a profound shift within themselves, as if their very essence was being refined and strengthened. When the treatment ended, Dr. Rodriguez's face was alight with excitement as she reviewed the results. "It worked," she announced, her voice filled with awe. "Your cellular structure is more stable than ever, and your ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields has increased exponentially." The news of this breakthrough spread quickly, reaching Admiral Vex Thor aboard his flagship. Intrigued by the implications, he requested a private meeting with Walter and Zara to discuss the advancement. As they prepared for the meeting, Walter and Zara stood together before a mirror, marveling at the subtle changes in their appearance. Their metallic skin seemed to flow more smoothly, and there was a new depth to the way it reflected light. "Whatever happens next," Zara said, her voice soft but determined, "we face it together." Walter nodded, squeezing her hand gently. "Together," he agreed, as they turned to make their way to the meeting that could shape the future of human-Scythian relations and the course of hybrid evolution throughout the galaxy. As they made their way to the meeting with Admiral Vex Thor, an urgent message from Dr. Rodriguez halted them in their tracks. "Walter, Zara, please come to the medical bay immediately." Dr. Rodriguez's voice crackled through their communication devices. "There's been a development with Admiral Vex Thor's daughter." Exchanging a quick glance, Walter and Zara altered their course, their metallic skin shimmering as they moved swiftly through the corridors. Upon entering the medical bay, they found Dr. Rodriguez standing over a bed where Lyria, the Admiral's daughter, lay motionless but with noticeably improved vital signs displayed on the nearby monitors. "Her condition has stabilized further," Dr. Rodriguez explained, her eyes bright with cautious optimism. "I believe your unique hybrid abilities may be the key to her full recovery." Without hesitation, Walter and Zara positioned themselves on either side of Lyria's bed. They closed their eyes, focusing their newly enhanced electromagnetic manipulation on the young Scythian's prone form. A soft, pulsating glow emanated from their hands as they channeled energy into Lyria's body. Minutes passed in tense silence, broken only by the steady beep of medical equipment. Suddenly, Lyria's eyelids fluttered, and a small gasp escaped her lips. The monitors surged with activity as her vital signs strengthened even further. Admiral Vex Thor, who had been summoned to the medical bay, watched the scene unfold with a mix of awe and hope. As Walter and Zara continued their healing efforts, the Admiral's stoic demeanor softened, revealing the concern of a father for his child. Over the next few days, Walter and Zara spent hours by Lyria's bedside, using their abilities to accelerate her healing process. Their efforts paid off as Lyria's condition improved rapidly, surpassing even Dr. Rodriguez's most optimistic projections. As Lyria regained consciousness and strength, Admiral Vexthor found himself extending his stay on Haven. He spent long hours by his daughter's side, observing the care provided by the hybrid medical team and engaging in conversations with Walter, Zara, and other colonists. The Admiral's prolonged presence on Haven led to increased interaction between the colony's residents and the visiting Kytion crew. Cultural exchange programs were hastily organized, and joint training exercises were conducted, fostering a sense of camaraderie between the two groups. During one such exercise, Walter and Zara led a mixed team of human and Kytion participants through a simulated emergency response scenario. As they navigated the challenges together, barriers began to break down, and a genuine spirit of cooperation emerged. Incredible! A Kytion officer named Kresh remarked as he watched Walter manipulate an electromagnetic field to clear a path through simulated debris. I never imagined such abilities could be used so practically. Walter smiled, his metallic skin gleaming under the artificial lights. It's all about adapting and finding new applications for our gifts, he explained, gesturing for Kresh to try manipulating the field himself. As the training sessions and cultural exchanges continued, Walter and Zara found themselves drawn to explore the newly terraformed areas of Haven. During one of their excursions, they discovered a secluded hot spring formed by recent geological activity. The spring was nestled in a small valley, surrounded by vibrant alien vegetation. As they approached, they noticed an unusual shimmer in the air around the water. "Do you feel that?" Zara asked, her skin tingling with energy. Walter nodded, extending his hand towards the spring. "It's like the water is, resonating with our hybrid physiology." Curious, they waded into the warm water. The moment they submerged themselves, they felt a surge of energy coursing through their bodies. Their connection to Haven's electromagnetic field intensified, and they found themselves able to manipulate it with unprecedented precision. Zara lifted her hand, creating a small vortex of water above the spring's surface. Walter joined her, their combined efforts shaping the water into complex, ever-changing patterns. As they experimented with their enhanced abilities, they felt a deepening connection, not just to Haven, but to each other. Their time in the hot spring became a daily ritual, a chance to explore their evolving powers and strengthen their bond. During one such session, they discovered they could create localized energy fields that affected the environment around them. Excited by this development, they began to experiment with accelerating the terraforming process in specific areas near the spring. Under their influence, plants grew at an accelerated rate, and the soil composition changed to better support life. Dr. Rodriguez, intrigued by reports of their new abilities, conducted a series of tests on Walter and Zara. The results revealed a surprising synchronization in their hybrid physiologies, suggesting that their deepening bond was enhancing their individual and combined abilities. "This is remarkable," Dr. Rodriguez said, reviewing the data. "Your connection seems to be amplifying your hybrid traits. It could be the key to unlocking even greater potential in hybrid evolution." Inspired by these findings, the research team began to study other hybrid couples on Haven, looking for similar patterns of physiological synchronization. While other pairs showed some degree of alignment, it became clear that Walter and Zara's connection was unique in its intensity and effects. As news of these discoveries spread throughout the colony, more non-hybrid residents expressed interest in undergoing the hybridization process. Even Marcus Graves, once a vocal opponent of hybridization, approached Walter and Zara to discuss the possibility of joining the program. "I've seen the way you two work together, the things you can accomplish," Marcus said, his voice tinged with a mix of awe and uncertainty. "Maybe I was wrong about hybridization. Maybe it's not just about changing who we are, but about becoming something more." Walter and Zara exchanged a glance, recognizing the significance of this moment. Marcus's change of heart represented a broader shift in the colony's attitude towards hybridization. As Haven's success story began to spread, representatives from other human and Kytion worlds requested permission to visit and observe the colony's progress. The governing council, after careful deliberation, agreed to allow limited visits under strict security protocols. Walter and Zara found themselves tasked with developing a comprehensive tour and demonstration of Haven's achievements. They worked closely with Sarah Clark to ensure that both hybrid and non-hybrid aspects of the colony were fairly represented. As they prepared for the upcoming diplomatic visits, Walter and Zara continued to explore the limits of their synchronized abilities. They discovered they could now communicate telepathically over greater distances, and with more clarity than ever before. One evening, as they stood atop Haven's main defense tower surveying the colony, they felt a tremor beneath their feet. The seismic activity, a side effect of the accelerated terraforming process, was intensifying. Without a word, Walter and Zara joined hands, their metallic skin shimmering with energy. Together, they reached out with their electromagnetic abilities, sensing the planet's energy flows and the source of the disturbance. In perfect synchronization, they began to channel Haven's energy, using their enhanced skills to stabilize the affected areas. As they worked, their bond grew stronger, their consciousness merging until it was difficult to tell where one ended and the other began. The tremor subsided, leaving Haven calm once more. Walter and Zara remained on the tower, their hands intertwined, gazing out at the world they had helped shape and protect. As they gazed out at the horizon, the ground beneath their feet trembled once more. Without hesitation, Walter and Zara clasped hands, their metallic skin pulsing with energy. They reached out with their electromagnetic senses, probing the planet's energy flows to locate the source of the disturbance. "There," Zara said, her voice resonating in Walter's mind. "The fault line near the eastern ridge." Together, they extended their awareness, channeling Haven's energy to stabilize the affected area. Their bodies glowed with an intense light, the air around them shimmering as they worked in perfect synchronization. As they focused their efforts, the tremors began to subside. The ground beneath them settled, and the distant rumbling faded to silence. Walter and Zara maintained their connection for several more minutes, ensuring the stability of the area before slowly releasing their hold on the planet's energy. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had been monitoring their activities from the nearby research station, approached with a look of excitement on her face. "Remarkable," she said, holding up a tablet displaying a series of complex readings. "Your physiological synchronization is reaching new levels. The energy output you're generating is off the charts." Walter and Zara exchanged a glance, their skin still shimmering with residual energy. "It feels different," Walter admitted. "More intense." Dr. Rodriguez nodded eagerly. "I'd like to run some additional tests if you're up for it. This could be a significant breakthrough in our understanding of hybrid abilities." As they made their way to the research facility, an urgent message came through their communication devices. "Walter, Zara," Sarah Clark's voice crackled. "The first diplomatic delegation has just entered Haven's orbit. They'll be landing at the spaceport in 30 minutes. "We're on our way," Zara responded, her voice calm despite the sudden shift in priorities. They arrived at the spaceport just as the sleek diplomatic shuttle touched down. Walter and Zara stood at the forefront of the welcoming committee, their presence drawing curious and sometimes wary glances from the disembarking delegates. Ambassador Joran, a tall, distinguished man with silver hair, was the first to step forward. His eyes widened slightly as he took in Walter and Zara's appearance, his gaze lingering on the faint energy field that surrounded them. "Welcome to Haven, Ambassador," Walter said, extending his hand. "I'm Walter, and this is Zara. We're honored to have you here." Ambassador Joran hesitated for a moment before shaking Walter's hand. "Thank you for the warm welcome," he said, his tone polite but reserved. "I must say, I've heard a great deal about Havens. Unique residence, but seeing it firsthand is quite something." As the introductions continued, the ground beneath them suddenly shook violently. Several delegates stumbled, crying out in alarm. Without missing a beat, Walter and Zara sprang into action. They moved in perfect unison, their hands outstretched as they channeled electromagnetic energy into the ground. A visible wave of energy rippled outward from where they stood, stabilizing the area around the spaceport. The delegates watched in awe as the tremor subsided, leaving the area calm once more. Ambassador Jordan's expression shifted from shock to grudging admiration. "Impressive," he said, straightening his jacket. "It seems the reports of your abilities were not exaggerated." Walter nodded, his skin still glowing faintly. "We do what we can to protect Haven and its people. If you're willing, we'd like to show you more of what we've accomplished here." Ambassador Jordan glanced at his fellow delegates before turning back to Walter and Zara. "I believe that would be most enlightening. Please, lead the way." As they began the tour, Dr. Rodriguez's voice came through Walter and Zara's communication devices. "I've been analyzing the data from your recent energy manipulation," she said excitedly. "There's something you need to see when you have a moment. It's about Lyria." Walter acknowledged the message discreetly as they led the delegation towards Haven's central complex. The mention of Admiral Vexthor's daughter added another layer of complexity to an already charged situation. As they walked, Marcus Graves approached the group. His newly hybridized form drew curious looks from the delegates. "Walter, Zara," he greeted them warmly. "I heard about the tremors. Is everything under control?" Zara nodded. "For now. How are you adjusting to your new abilities?" Marcus smiled, his metallic skin gleaming in the sunlight. "It's been quite a journey, but I'm starting to see the potential. I'd be happy to share my experience with our guests if you think it would help." Ambassador Jordan stepped forward, his interest piqued. "I'd be very interested to hear about your transformation, Mr. Graves. Perhaps during our tour?" As the group continued their walk through Haven's streets, Walter and Zara exchanged a silent glance. The diplomatic visit, the ongoing seismic activity, Marcus's integration, and the news about Lyria all pointed to a pivotal moment in Haven's history. They knew that their actions in the coming days would shape not only the future of their colony, but potentially the course of human-alien relations throughout the galaxy. The central complex loomed ahead, its sleek architecture a testament to the marriage of human and Kytion design. As they approached the entrance, Walter and Zara prepared themselves for the challenges that lay ahead, knowing that their unique bond and evolving abilities would be put to the test in ways they had never imagined before. As they entered the central complex, Walter and Zara were immediately greeted by Dr. Rodriguez, her face alight with excitement. "I've made a breakthrough with Lyria's treatment," she said, leading them to a nearby conference room. The diplomatic delegation followed, their curiosity piqued. Inside, holographic displays showed Lyria's progress. The young hybrid's form shimmered with a faint energy field, reminiscent of Walter and Zara's own. "Her hybrid abilities are developing at an unprecedented rate," Dr. Rodriguez explained. "She's already showing signs of energy manipulation on a small scale." Ambassador Jordan leaned forward, his eyes wide. "This is remarkable. The implications for medical advancement alone are staggering." Walter nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need to expand our facilities to accommodate more cases like Lyria's. And not just for medical purposes. We could establish specialized training centers across Haven." Zara caught his thought and expanded on it. "We could use the mineral-rich hot springs we discovered to enhance hybrid abilities. It would make Haven a galactic center for hybridization and diplomacy." The governing council convened an emergency session to discuss the proposal. After hours of debate, they emerged with a unanimous decision. Haven would embrace its role as a beacon of hybrid potential. In the weeks that followed, Walter and Zara threw themselves into the task of establishing a series of specialized training facilities across the planet. They worked tirelessly, using their synchronized abilities to accelerate construction and ensure harmony with Haven's ecosystem. As news of Haven's advancements spread, visitors from various worlds began to arrive, eager to experience the benefits of controlled hybridization firsthand. The influx necessitated rapid expansion of Haven's infrastructure. Walter and Zara stood atop a newly constructed residential tower, overlooking the bustling cityscape below. The air hummed with energy as hybrid and non-hybrid alike worked together to build their shared future. "It's incredible how far we've come," Zara said, her hand intertwined with Walter's. He nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon where another research center was taking shape. "And we're just getting started." Their communicators buzzed simultaneously. It was Dr. Rodriguez. "Lyria's asking for you both. She's made another breakthrough." They arrived at the medical facility to find Lyria sitting cross-legged on her bed, a small ball of energy floating above her palm. Her eyes, now a striking combination of human and Kytion features, lit up as they entered. "Watch this," she said, her voice filled with childlike wonder. The energy ball split into three, then merged back into one. Walter and Zara exchanged a glance, recognizing the monumental nature of this achievement. They spent the next few hours guiding Lyria through exercises, helping her understand and control her new abilities. As they left Lyria's room, Admiral Vexthor approached, his usually stern face softened with gratitude. "I cannot thank you enough for what you've done for my daughter," he said. "The Kytion fleet stands ready to assist Haven in any way we can." The success of Lyria's treatment sparked a surge in medical tourism to Haven. Dr. Rodriguez and her team worked around the clock, developing new hybridization techniques to treat previously incurable conditions. Walter and Zara found themselves at the center of these treatments, using their synchronized abilities to channel and direct Haven's energy with unprecedented precision. Each successful case further cemented Haven's reputation as a place of healing and transformation. However, with increased visibility came new challenges. One evening, as Walter and Zara were overseeing the final stages of a new terraforming project, alarms blared across the colony. "Security breach in Sector 7, a voice announced over the communication system. Suspected sabotage attempt on terraforming systems." Without hesitation, Walter and Zara sprang into action. They led a team of hybrid security personnel to the affected area, their skins glowing with terrifying energy. As they approached the saboteurs, Walter and Zara linked hands, creating a shimmering energy field around their team. The extremists, caught off guard by the display of power, found themselves quickly surrounded. "We don't want to hurt you," Zara called out, her voice calm but firm. "Lower your weapons and come peacefully." For a tense moment, it seemed the confrontation would turn violent. Then, one by one, the saboteurs dropped their weapons, awed and intimidated by the hybrid's abilities. The incident prompted Haven's governing council to implement stricter security measures. Walter and Zara were tasked with developing a planet-wide defense system that leveraged the unique abilities of hybrid individuals. They spent weeks mapping out energy nodes across Haven, connecting them through the naturally occurring crystal formations. The result was a network that allowed for rapid response to any potential threats. As they activated the final node, Walter turned to Zara, a smile playing on his lips. "Ready to show the galaxy what we can really do?" Zara nodded, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. "Let's give them a demonstration they'll never forget." The couple began preparations for a grand symposium on Haven, inviting representatives from dozens of worlds to witness the true potential of controlled hybridization. Little did they know, this event would mark the beginning of a new chapter, not just for Haven, but for the entire galaxy. As the final preparations for the symposium were underway, Walter and Zara decided to visit the site of the evolved crystal formation one last time. The underground cavern hummed with energy as they approached the towering crystalline structure. Its facets glowed with an otherworldly light, casting prismatic patterns across the rocky walls. "It's beautiful," Zara whispered, her hand instinctively reaching for Walter's. As their fingers intertwined, a surge of energy coursed through their bodies. The crystal's light intensified, engulfing them in a blinding radiance. Walter and Zara felt themselves lifted off the ground, their metallic skin shimmering with an unprecedented brilliance. In that moment, their minds merged and a shared vision unfolded before them. They saw the vastness of the cosmos, countless worlds teeming with life, and the untapped potential of hybrid evolution. The vision revealed the true extent of their abilities, far beyond anything they had imagined. As the light faded and their feet touched the ground, Walter and Zara looked at each other with a mixture of awe and trepidation. Their bodies pulsed with raw power, the air around them crackling with energy. "Did you see?" Walter began. Zara nodded, her eyes wide. "Everything. The entire galaxy. Walter, we've changed." They spent the next few hours testing the limits of their newfound abilities. With a mere thought, they could manipulate energy on a cosmic scale, bending the very fabric of space-time. The implications were staggering and terrifying. As they emerged from the cavern, the reality of their situation sank in. The ground beneath their feet trembled slightly, responding to their mere presence. "We can't stay here," Walter said, his voice heavy with realization. "Our power. It's too much for Haven." Zara nodded solemnly. "We need to call an emergency meeting of the Galactic Hybridization Council." Within hours, the council convened. Walter and Zara stood before the assembled leaders, their skin still shimmering with residual energy. "We've undergone a transformation," Walter began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Our abilities have evolved to a point where remaining on Haven could jeopardize the planet's stability." Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber. Zara stepped forward, her gaze sweeping across the gathered faces. "We propose a new mission," she said. "We will journey to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, seeking out dying worlds and civilizations in need. With our enhanced abilities, we can restore these planets and guide their inhabitants towards sustainable hybrid evolution." The council erupted in a mix of excitement and apprehension. Questions flew rapid fire. How would Haven manage without them? What about ongoing diplomatic efforts? The security of the planet? Walter raised his hand, calming the clamor. "We've thought this through. We'll oversee the final stages of Haven's development before we leave. We'll ensure our defenses, research facilities, and diplomatic infrastructure are fully prepared for our absence." Over the next few weeks, Walter and Zara worked tirelessly. They fortified Haven's planetary shield, integrating it with the energy node network they had established. They expanded the hybridization research facilities, leaving detailed instructions for future experiments and treatments. As the day of their departure drew near, Walter and Zara called together their closest allies, Kai, Sarah Clark, and the now fully recovered Lyria. In a solemn ceremony, they transferred leadership of Haven to this trusted council. "We entrust the future of Haven to you," Zara said, her voice thick with emotion. "Continue our work. Let this world be a beacon of hope and progress for the entire galaxy." On their final evening on Haven, Walter and Zara returned to the hot spring where their bond had first intensified. They sat at the water's edge, their fingers intertwined, watching the twin moons rise over the horizon. It feels like a lifetime ago, Walter mused. When I found you in that crashed ship, did you ever imagine we'd end up here? Zara smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. Not in my wildest dreams, but I wouldn't change a thing. As dawn broke on the day of their departure, the entire population of Haven gathered in the central plaza. Walter and Zara stood before them, their bodies pulsing with barely suppressed energy. People of Haven, Walter addressed the crowd, his voice carrying across the hushed gathering. Today, we embark on a new journey. But know that wherever we go, whatever we become, Haven will always be our home. With those final words, Walter and Zara began to rise into the air, unaided by any technology. Their ascent was accompanied by a dazzling display of light and color, a farewell gift to the world that had fostered their evolution. As they reached the upper atmosphere, Walter and Zara exchanged a final, loving look at the planet below. Then, joining hands, they transformed in a brilliant flash of light, becoming beings of pure energy. The assembled crowd watched in awe as two streaks of radiant light shot across Haven's sky, leaving a trail of shimmering stardust in their wake. Walter and Zara, once a human soldier and a near-death alien girl, now cosmic entities, set off on their journey to reshape the galaxy. Their first stop was a dying world on the outer rim of the galaxy. As they approached the planet's atmosphere, Walter and Zara focused their energy, preparing to breathe new life into the failing ecosystem.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.